All right, what is going on? It's drive time. It's a Monday. It's 10 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. I'm going to be clear right up front. We got 4 hours of this to do, and I don't know how it's going to go. Great to be back. Took Thursday and Friday off. We'll do a little story time later on from the weekend. I was down at Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer Bay Hill PGA Tour event. There was really fun to be there. Russell Henley was able to win it, holding off Colin Morikawa. Our guy Tony Finau just melted down in the final round on Sunday. Had a great, great time. Got some Orlando sunshine. And it's great to be back. I always say enjoy taking some time off, but it's even better when I get to come back. But I'm going to be honest, right out of the gates, your boy came back with something. Not sure what it is. Don't know if it was on the plane. Don't know if it was in the swamps of an Orlando golf course. I don't know. So I'm not sick, but the voice is like, Porter, I got to say, right out of the gates, I'm about 50% today. I'm not going to lie.
50?
Yeah, about 50%.
So we're in a late season kind of load management type situation today. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if I was employed by an NBA team, I just wouldn't have shown up.
Minutes restriction?
4 hours of this to do, buddy. I'm just saying, you just need to be prepared
All
at
live.
any moment for me to kind of turn to you and say, give me 30 seconds of something dynamic.
I'll get a script together. I'll figure something out.
How are you, ma'am?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Anything exciting happen while I was gone?
Scott Mitchell was here. Actually, he wasn't here.
No,
I
said exciting.
I know. He was on remote. So it was really just me sitting in this glass box alone for a couple of days. But it was good. Obviously, plenty of things to discuss. Alex Jensen officially named the Utes head coach. And then Big 12 tournament stuff ahead for the running Utes. And we had some Big 12 stuff in action over the weekend that we kind of got to with the ladies' side. So, it was a fun time with Scott, catching up with him and him catching up with fans over at Overtime and at the Expo Center. But nothing too wild. It sounds like Orlando was probably where that was happening.
Update. I just broke a sweat. It's 2:12.
There we go.
I just started sweating. So the voice is not what it typically is. I'm about 50% today. But hello, how are you? My name is Spence Checketts. I host this show. It's good to be back after a couple of days off. And we have a lot to get to on this Monday edition of the radio show. Obviously, as Porter referenced, since you and I last spoke, Alex Jensen officially named the head coach of the Utah men's basketball program. Woo! This is going to be interesting to see if I can get through this. So we'll get to the latest with Alex. I've been able to exchange a couple of messages with him. What does it mean for Utah basketball? BYU was able to beat the Utes on the hardwood down in Provo, and the Big 12 tournament is now upon us. So we'll do some college basketball on the show today. The Utah Jazz, continue to lose. And high speed ahead to one of the worst records in the NBA, which is what we all hope, is what we should hope, at least with the way it's built. The bottom three teams get 14% chance to get that number one overall pick. I don't know how I'm going to do this for 4 hours, dude. I'm not going to lie. So we'll talk some Jazz basketball on the show today as well. We got a good guest list. The news in the NFL is coming in fast and furious. We'll do our best to kind of update you all the free agency. Free agency technically begins on Wednesday, but a lot of news has been breaking and coming down today. We'll kind of review a bunch of it. Sam Darnold's going to the Seahawks. Justin Fields is going to the Jets, which is ridiculous. Laramie Tunsil is going to the Commanders, and more news will spill in as we're on air for the next 4 hours. All right. First guest is going to be Tim McMahon, NBA Daily Assist with Tim. Going to move over to Britton Johnson after that. Britton Johnson played college basketball with Alex Jensen. Those two are very, very close. Britton and I worked together at the old station for Jazz broadcast for about 7 years. So excited to bring in Britt today, Josh Furlong, and then Kurt Schmidt for some RSL. So Tim McMahon, Britton Johnson, Josh Furlong, Kurt Schmidt. I'm going to do what I can to get through 4 hours. I didn't know it was going to be like this, or I probably would not have come into work today. And that guy, Porter Larson, producing the show today. So let's get to it. Our first guest will be Tim McMahon. But before we get to Tim, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now on a Monday for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of the drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
All right. I honestly don't know how I'm going to do this.
What do you got a honey drop? What do you got in?
I got a cough drop in. I don't know how I'm going to do this for 4 hours. So let me ask you, Porter, before I get into this stuff. Now that the news is official, Alex Jensen has been hired. How was the news met around here? And how did you guys handle it on the show? We reported last week that it felt imminent, but now it's official. How did you guys handle it last week when it broke?
Yeah, I think that the news was received in Utes land, if you will, really well, Spence. And you wait until the press conference to see if you win the press conference. But for Utah, this was a hire that a lot of fans wanted a couple hires ago. A lot of fans have been clamoring over for a time. And a lot of fans, I don't think necessarily gave Craig Smith a chance ever because they wanted this hire done the first time. And there is a contingent of them that, regardless of the situation of who's available, a former player, especially one from the late 90s, is the only consideration, right? And I understand that. I respect it. I don't necessarily agree with it all when it comes down to coaching searches and whatnot, but I do think that Alex Jensen, of course, is a really good hire, and it does appear that the rest of Ute land feels the same way, and there's a lot of excitement. On the show, of course, we had Scott in. Scott, we made Scott talk hoops. That's part of the gig when you're out. But it was fun trying to get a read from Sean Mooney, a former Ute. Of course, we had Josh Grant on last week or the week before. We'll have him on at the end of this week. A lot of excitement from people in and around the program that have felt a little disconnected for one reason or another. And I think that's kind of the main takeaway from the hiring of Alex Jensen. It seems like there's some energy around the program that hasn't been there for a minute.
So Tim McMahon is going to join us as he'll be our first guest. And Tim covers the Dallas Mavericks. Tim is reporting, as is Mark Stein, that Alex will finish the season with the Mavs. Now, that could come a lot earlier than it was expected to. Dallas made the NBA Finals last year. And, of course, it's been a season of chaos. Luka Doncic traded to the Lakers. Anthony Davis was the player they acquired. He lasted a quarter and a half. And now Kyrie Irving is out with a torn Achilles. Dallas has lost their last 5 games. And the Phoenix Suns very much want to make the postseason, and they're right behind Dallas. So there's a good chance that Dallas could miss even the play-in altogether, which is wild. I think they were the Vegas favorite to win the West to start the year after going to the NBA Finals a year ago. So maybe Alex will be on the ground sooner than a lot of people are expecting. I think this is a dynamite hire. I think this is the right call. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks on the show now as far as all the avenues that Mark Harlan had at his disposal. And one of those avenues was the avenue that he elected to take last time, which is find a youngest head coach that has won on a level that might be a little bit below the Big 12 in a school that's a little bit smaller than the University of Utah, and then elevate that coach who has kind of earned his stripes. That's what most ADs do in a situation like this. It's what they did with Ray Giacoletti. It's, ish, right? Giacoletti was an assistant at Gonzaga, but it's what they did with Larry Kraskowiak and, of course, what they did with Craig Smith. And so this is a different avenue. It's a different direction. But I think this is the right move for a number of different reasons. This is just my humble opinion. And there's a lot of pressure for Mark Harlan to get this hire right, as we've talked about. After Tom Homo stepped down 20 years as the athletic director for Brigham Young, kind of the first or second sentence in his resume byline during his 20 years is, and always will be the hires he made as the BYU AD. By the way, I don't talk like this now. I'm just sick as a dog. I don't know why I'm at work. It's dumb, but, what do you do? So when it comes to Tom, we're talking Bronco Mendenhall, we're talking Dave Rose, we're talking Kalani, Mark Pope, and now Kevin Young, and all 5 of those hires obviously turned out to be great hires. And with Mark Harlan, the one hire he's made, at least in the revenue-generating space, is Craig Smith. And after 4 years and change, decided that wasn't the direction. And with the way that college athletics and college basketball is moving, the NBA tie is an advantage. I think it's a built-in advantage. And Brigham Young has done it with Kevin Young, and a lot of schools across the landscape of the country, I think, are going to look at this because as we move in incrementally more and more into this new reality of college athletics, your coaching staff and your athletic department are going to mirror professional front offices, even more than they do now. We've already seen a lot of college football programs and college basketball programs hire general managers. I think you're going to see them hire, a lot of like capologist type people. We've already seen a lot of hires that were made with guys that have law backgrounds, law degrees, lawyers now working for college basketball, college football programs to make sure that you're staying compliant with the things that you need to stay compliant in. So the fact that Alex, the fact that Alex can walk into a living room and sit across from some parents and a young prospect and can drop, I've coached Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Gordon Hayward. He can talk about the all-stars that he's coached and the all-stars that he helped develop and evolve. I mean, the Gobert story is such a success story in so many different ways. Of course, the bulk of the credit goes to Rudy, but Alex is the guy that is given a lot of credit for turning in one of the more awkward young prospects I've ever seen in my life around basketball into a Hall of Famer. And so the fact that Alex can have that cachet, have that credibility is a really cool thing. And I think it's going to go a long way. Now, there's a lot to do for Alex and his staff. And I don't know what the staff's going to look like. We haven't heard anything official in that direction. A lot of people reporting that Alex is interested in having Andre Miller as one of his lead assistant coaches, maybe his lead assistant coach. I can't corroborate that. Only time will tell. But once that staff kind of gets into place, and look, we probably shouldn't go any further without acknowledging the awkward spot that Josh Eilert and the Utes find themselves in, trying to finish off the season and stay competitive. The first half was pretty competitive the other night in Provo. Then BYU just started making shots and ran away from the Utes, 85-74. Utah's the 11 seed in the Big 12 tournament. They're going to take on UCF coming up. So obviously kind of an awkward dynamic if you're Josh Eilert and if you're these Utah Utes men's basketball players. And we'll see what Alex is able to do once he lands on the ground. Because like I said, there's just a lot to do for this staff. If there's a lot to do with getting the community involved, there's a lot to do with energizing people that may not have been all that excited about the basketball program for the past, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. It's been a long time since that basketball team was consistently competitive and that building was even kind of full. And if we're honest, when I use the term consistent, it's been since Rick was here. Consistent greatness, consistent winning, consistent performance, and consistent community involvement. It's probably been since Rick was here, long, long time ago. So Alex, of course, played for Rick. He was an assistant for Rick. Rick Majerus oftentimes applauded Alex as the smartest player he ever coached. Alex always played as a guy that at some point, if he wanted to, was going to be a really good coach. And Dallas, they valued him. You know, one of the things that I was able to uncover based off of conversations I had is that once Dallas realized Utah basketball was serious about Alex, they became more serious about keeping Alex because this is the final year of his career. Now, I've also been told that one of the main reasons Alex looked at this gig was because of the security, because he wasn't thrilled exactly with what Dallas was offering him. They extended Jason Kidd last year, but they just did not extend any of the assistant coaches. And, of course, that includes Alex Jensen. All right, before we catch a break, I want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. It's made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on 2 players to shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app. Use the promo code ESPN700. You get $50 when you play $5. No idea how the hell we're doing 4 hours of this, but we'll catch a break. Tim McMahon joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, start of the show, not awesome. See if we can make it through 4 hours. You guys dealing with something. Not sure what it is. The voice is, I don't usually sound like this. I usually have a much deeper, more manly baritone delivery instead of this whisper where I sound like I'm 90 years old. But we'll make it through because I'm just going to welcome in our next guest. He's going to give us 20 minutes of content without me asking a question. Tim McMahon, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I've got a question for you. Who the hell told you have a manly and baritone voice?
That's just in my own head when I listen back. I'm like, man, that is manly. That is baritone. But today, I've got the cold. I've got the flu. So we're just doing our best to get by without only whispering for 4 hours.
Okay. Well, I'll keep these answers as short as possible, make you work hard.
Yeah, you're the wrong guy actually to do this. I just realized that, Tim. But I appreciate the time, man. All right, we've got to get your reaction right out of the gates. Then now it's official. A guy that you know well. You covered him here in Utah. And, of course, now down in Dallas. Alex Jensen will be the 17th head coach in the history of Utah men's basketball. Tim, tell our listeners why, in your opinion, if you believe it is the right hire, why you think it is.
Well, I definitely think it's the right hire. And look, Alex is a guy who does have head coaching experience. It's at the G League level, but was very successful at that level. Obviously has deep roots in Utah with that program, having been a huge part of the Final Four team there. The man knows basketball. He's a good dude. He knows people. He's going to get a great staff in there. He's going to, I believe, I think recruiting will be a challenge for him, but one that he's up to. I say it's a challenge just because it's going to be something that he hasn't done before. But this guy knows hoops. He knows hard work. He knows that program. He's obviously deeply emotionally invested in that program. And, I just think it was the obvious hire for Utah to make.
What about Alex as far as the way he kind of comes across? Because he is a little introverted, Tim. And I keep saying, don't mistake his introverted nature for him, not necessarily being able to lead a program. But it is different when you move over one seat, isn't it? Like, is there anything about the way Alex just kind of approaches, just life as an introvert that you think he's going to have to adjust a little bit now that he's a head coach in college?
Well, and when I talk about recruiting maybe being a challenge for him, that's going to be part of it. I think, he's going to have to get, assistant or assistants on his staff who maybe are a little bit different from a personality standpoint. But the one thing about Alex is you don't have to wonder where he stands. He's very direct. He's very honest. He might not be for everybody because of those things. I mean, let's be real. There's some people who kind of want stuff sugar-coated. But I think in general, that approach serves him very well. And I don't think it'll be any different at the college level.
Tell our listeners, because one of the things that I've talked about quite a bit is Alex getting a lot of credit for Rudy's evolution. And we've talked about this before, but radio isn't linear. And, of course, the bulk of the credit for that growth goes to Rudy. But what did you witness when you were covering those Jazz teams as far as Rudy's growth and Alex's role in that?
Yeah, and Alex was the guy who was working with him on a daily basis. Alex was the guy who was, drilling not just the skill stuff, but really, how to play basketball, how to operate as a big man, how to maximize his strengths, what the details, the priorities, the things that were really important in terms of impact and winning. Alex was the guy who, on a daily basis, were drilling those things into Rudy's head. And, they did have a relationship where he coached him hard. There was no accepting bull from Rudy. Like if Rudy was whining about touches, Alex would, would just talk to him about, okay, hey, you want touches. Did you sprint the floor on this possession? Did you get down there and get deep position? Did you roll hard after this screen? And talk about, like, are you setting hard screens? The best way for a big man to get open is setting the hard screens. All those kind of things. Rudy went from a raw, gangly, late first-round pick project type of prospect to an All NBA big man and a future Hall of Famer. And look, credit Rudy, but Alex Jensen was the guy working with him on a daily basis. And if you ask Rudy who outside of himself is most responsible for his development, if Alex isn't the first name out of his mouth, it's going to come out very, very early.
One more thing here, then we'll move on. You referenced his stint in the G League. He was the G League Coach of the Year with the Canton Charge. And while that's not an NBA job, it's not a college job, it's a challenging job, Tim, because everybody in the G League, coaches, players, front office, broadcasters, they don't want to be there. They're there as a means to an end. So what sort of statement is that on the type of a coach Alex is, that he was able to win a G League championship and be named the G League Coach of the Year?
I think it's proof that he has a way of being able to get the best out of people in challenging circumstances. And, like you said, the G League, it's really kind of a mercenary league, in a way, right? Because like you said, everybody is trying to make it a pit stop and not a destination. And so if you can get the best out of people there and really maximize a team environment in that sort of environment, I think you're going to have success pretty much anywhere you go.
And ultimately, as you reported, the plan is for him to finish the season off with Dallas, but based off of the current situation with the Mavs, Alex and Natalie might be looking to move home quicker than we expected, right? Like, it is wild for a team that went to the NBA Finals. This precipitous fall from grace. I mean, it's pretty rare to see it like this. So there's a good opportunity that Alex will be moving here pretty soon, right? Do you think the Mavs are going to make the postseason?
No, of course they're not going to make. I mean, maybe the 9-10 playing game if the Suns can't get their stuff together. But the Mavs, look, man, when Kyrie went down, any hope of the Mavericks doing any kind of damage or even making the playoffs this year went completely out the window. And just to be clear on Alex finishing the season in Dallas, he is obviously going to be part of the Mavs staff the rest of the season. He's going to be fully committed to that. But he basically has two full-time jobs right now. He's also fully immersed as far as, putting together a staff, talking to, when a guy gets a head coaching job, you can imagine how his phone blows up with people looking for jobs and considering people who are on that staff now. And, just that entire process, he is going to find time to be around the team. I believe he's going to make it to the conference tournament for at least a little bit of that. It will be around the Mavericks schedule, but he has already started on the job at Utah. He's just not going to be there on a daily basis until the end of the Mavericks season.
Good insight there. Good knowledge there. All right, moving off Alex Jensen and the Mavs stuff, and maybe we'll end with a little Jazz, although I don't know what I'm going to invent to ask you today about the Jazz. What were your takeaways from OKC undressing the Nuggets yesterday? And obviously the Shea, Nikola Jokic stuff, it feels like the MVP is pretty much locked up at this point. But we did see two of the West big dogs yesterday in kind of an MVP battle. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I'm actually in OKC as we speak, so we will see if I will see another MVP showcase. Joker is listed as questionable tonight. And look, man, both these guys have incredible cases. Like, the one thing I hate about the MVP conversation is it's become about tearing another guy down instead of building a guy up. But to me, the case for Shea is, he leads the league in scoring by multiple hundreds of points and plus minus on a team that has an 11-game lead in the Western Conference. He's a huge part of the number one defense in the Western Conference. And, the Joker's always had this huge advantage in the MVP discussion because of the on-off numbers. Look at the on-off numbers for SGA with the Thunder. The Thunder are about even when he's off the court. They're like plus 19 per 100 possessions with him on the floor. It's insane. Now, Joker might be having his best season, which is a mouthful for a guy who's won 3 MVPs. I think we can lay it out and you can go either way. To me, if it's close, You go with a guy whose team has an 11-game cushion in the conference and that has never won it, instead of the guy who is, whose team is, not middle of the pack, but they'll finish second, third, fourth, somewhere in there, and he's won it 3 times. So I would go with Shea. I don't think that's a controversial take, but it's a take that I've made that has not made me popular in the Balkan states.
Yeah, for sure. And you make good points, and it's always been this way. It shouldn't just be an indictment on one of the two. It's a compliment to the guy that's playing the way he's playing. And I wonder what your thoughts are on voter fatigue. You hear people say that a lot. And if he's the MVP, he should be the MVP. It's wild that Kobe won it once or whatever, but you do hear a lot of voters say hey, I just had voter fatigue, so I just went with the other guy. What's your take on that?
Is it voter fatigue to say that if it's even, you're going with a guy who hasn't won it yet? If that's voter fatigue, I guess, you could say, even though technically I don't have a vote, you could say I have voter fatigue.
How do you not have a vote? What is going on?
I honestly, it's fine with me because those votes can be sticky things.
Sure.
I actually don't mind not having one, but I would say I probably do a little bit more NBA viewing than the vast majority of people who do have votes, but that's neither here nor there. But again, voter fatigue, it's one thing if I'm saying, well, objectively, Joker's clearly the most valuable player in the league this season, but he's won 3, so I'm going to give it to another guy. What I'm saying is you could flip a coin. You could, both these guys have incredible cases. If it's even, I'm going with a guy who has not won it and whose team has the 11-game cushion. That's a fairly significant tiebreaker here.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I don't view hey, if all things are equal, I'm going with a guy that hasn't won it as voter fatigue. It just, whenever I hear a media member say, I admit that, yeah, I've just voted for Jokic and I feel like it was SGA's time and that's a hypothetical, I'm always like, no, just vote for the guy that you think deserves it. And a vote for Jokic, I wouldn't hate on anybody for that this year. I'm not saying that Shea deserves it because Jokic doesn't. I'm saying I do think Shea has been, if not on par, maybe slightly better. And I always kind of concede to the team that has a better record. I think winning should matter in these instances. At least that's my opinion.
Well, yeah, and the other thing, both guys deserve it.
For sure,
for sure.
Guys
have absolutely had just incredible MVP caliber seasons. It's like you said, if somebody votes for Joker, I'm not going to sit there and criticize that. The guy, he's having one of the best seasons in NBA history. I mean, the dude just had a 30-20-20 game. I mean, he's averaging a triple-double on incredible efficiency. He for a guy who supposedly isn't a good defender, his defensive analytics are actually unbelievable. I mean, he's an historically incredible player. And, there was this thing, well, if he, you can't give him 3 MVPs in a 4-year span or 3 straight MVPs because look where that puts him in historical company. And I'm like, dude, Joker is in that company. He is that, he's that good of a player.
For sure. Has OKC, now look, OKC, they made the postseason a year ago and they advanced around. So I'm not saying that they've never done it before, but more often than not, I always just kind of err on the side. If I'm trying to figure out and make a pick or whatever on a team that's going to win the West, I'm like, all right, well, I've seen Steph do it. I've seen LeBron do it. I've seen the Lakers. I've seen the Warriors, whatever. I've seen them do. I've seen the Nuggets do it. Is OKC good enough to dismiss the narrative of, well, they've never really made a playoff run together before?
Well, there's always going to be doubts about a team until they do it. I mean, look, there were doubts about the Celtics last year, even going into the finals, just because that group had not won a title before. So until you do it, until there's a parade, there are going to be doubts. But if you're making a prediction, like who's the best team in the Western Conference, who's most likely to come out of the Western Conference, I would say the fact that Oklahoma City has the best point differential in NBA history is a pretty decent indicator that the Thunder are a solid team. I don't think picking the Thunder to come out of the West this year is going out on a limb. I'll put it like that. Now, are they a guarantee? No, it's not a guarantee. But again, this is a team that is going to run away with the number one seed and have the best point differential probably in NBA history. Like, there's not a lot of and that's with Chet Holmgren missing the vast majority of the season due to injury, who is, their second or third best player. So there's not a lot of holes with the Thunder, unless you consider the lack of championship experience. And look, they don't have that yet, is what I would say.
All right, before I set you loose, because I know you got to run, I've asked you, like in the past, based off of the way Houston was playing for a minute, or LA was playing, or Denver, or whatever, which of the teams Mark Dagnall loses sleep over, strictly from a matchup standpoint, as opposed to a form standpoint. Come playoff time, which of the Western Conference contenders matches up the best with OKC?
That's a good question. And I think Joker's still the toughest matchup, but, look, they just, yesterday was a good game that the Thunder ran away with at the end. I still think that because of Jokic, they are the toughest matchup just because he's a matchup problem for anybody. But I'll tell you, we'll see what's going on with the Lakers health-wise. Obviously, this LeBron groin injury is clearly a concern. But I don't know that the Nuggets have a great matchup for Luka Doncic. I'm not sure they've got the guy who you say, okay, hey, we're good putting that guy on Luka, and that's a good matchup for us. I think it would take just an incredible series by Luka for the Lakers to be able to beat OKC. But that would be the one.
Tim, you are the man. Appreciate the time. Enjoy OKC, and we'll chat soon, buddy.
All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN. Covers the Dallas Mavericks right now. And that's where Alex Jensen is an employee as an assistant coach. If you missed it, some interesting insight from Tim. The reports were initially that Alex was going to finish out the season with the Dallas Mavericks. And technically, that still is the plan. He'll finish out his contract so he can continue to get a paycheck. But Tim's reporting Alex already on the job, essentially approaching this as he has two full-time jobs, expected to be at the Big 12 tournament at the university, or to see the University of Utah play. There have been reports out there that Alex has already talked to some players on the roster, but a lot of work to be done for Alex to get his staff done. And we'll go from there. Brought to you today by Burt Brothers, with over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations. Burt Brothers ASC certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. Look, just go stop in or book an appointment online. BurtBrothers.com is where you find it. Okay, it's a one-stop shop for everything you need, repairs and maintenance. BurtBrothers.com, doing it better since day one. Can we catch a break for the next 2 days? Are we able to catch a break here or what?
For a minute, yeah.
Well, tell Britt that he's going to have to hop on early. Because I carried Britton Johnson on radio shows for years. Tell him karma's a bitch, and it's time for him to come. Don't tell him that. But just tell him it's time for him to pay it back. And tell him your boy's laboring a little bit. So Britton Johnson, who's been friends with Alex Jensen for a long, long time, and teammates with Alex, of course, at the University of Utah, he's going to join us coming up next. If this is the first time you've listened to the show, sincere apologies. I think I underestimated kind of where I was at today with the energy and the voice. We're going to try to make it through, so we'll bring on Britton Johnson coming up next. We're going to replay Coach Witt, who joined us last week, a little bit later on. Josh Furlong, Kurt Schmidt. We'll try to get to 6 on ESPN 700. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I honestly thought if I warmed up my voice, it would be better.
I think it is getting better.
It doesn't feel like it.
Maybe.
Hello, how are you? My name is Spence. I host this show. If this is the first time that you're listening, do not judge us. I came back from vacation not feeling great. Thought I could rally today. Figured I'd warm the voice up and hope that it got better. So you're saying that incrementally it is improving a little bit.
Well, I haven't heard like it stop, and you have to, interrupt the program in the last 20, 30 minutes. So,
Like I did to start the show.
Yeah. So I think it's maybe like your voice is getting used to talking through it a little bit, which that can happen. But I can tell you're still battling through.
You know, it's funny. It's ironic. This is the issue I'm running into today because when I was on, so I went to Orlando with my little brother Andrew. Just the two of us, and
How many brothers do you have?
I got 3 brothers.
A twin?
No,
One of them looks exactly like you.
Which one?
I think it might be him.
The one that I was in Orlando with.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, but yes, there's Nate, there's Andrew, and then there's Ben and me. I'm the oldest. Then there are 2 girls. There are 6 of us.
Okay.
It's an LDS family, dude. It's not weird. Stop looking at me weird.
I know.
Although when we moved, I certainly had a lot of friends like making jokes about dropping a litter, the whole thing. Because where I grew up, 1 or 2 kids, maybe 3.
Right.
But no more than that. And the fact that we roll in with 6, and at the time we had like 5 under the age of 11, it's an intense way to grow up. But anyway, I have 3 brothers. I was with Andrew down at Bay Hill. And I got an email from a loose acquaintance who has recently changed his career. And he asked me if I wanted to buy insurance on my voice.
Oh.
Isn't that wild?
You should have.
I didn't know that you could do that.
Your friend had a leg up on you. Was he a loose acquaintance or a loose acquaintance?
What are you talking about? I don't know him that well.
Okay.
A loose acquaintance.
Gotcha.
What did I say?
That's what I was trying to clarify.
And that's what he is.
Okay.
What's the other option?
Like you don't know where he's going. He's loose. He's
oh, I see. No.
He's out there.
He's not a friend. He's someone who I kind of know from a job a long, long time ago. And he has made a change in his career. And he's selling all sorts of insurance. And he sent me this email breaking down exactly as a radio host what it costs per month to insure your voice. So if you ever have some sort of vocal cord permanent damage, you're able to get paid if you've been in this career for longer than I think he said 10 years.
Wow. I was going to say, yeah, like what happens if one day you wake up and you have that, like, you can't really enunciate. You can't
You get
talk.
paid out. You go to a doctor, you get proof that you're, so, you know what? Now that I'm talking through this,
Don't talk it out on air. It's gonna go against your case.
Oh.
But no,
Because today it doesn't sound like a bad idea.
It's interesting. You should have taken him up on it.
I'll just pay a friend 10% of my payout to just crack me in the throat, and then
Just
suddenly I have larynx damage or whatever they call it.
Get throat chopped every
And I
once
just
in a
get
while.
paid for years to not do my job. So, yes, I came back in town, wasn't feeling great, but essentially was embargoed, shout out Trey, and bunkered down in the house for a couple of days, didn't talk to anybody, with the hopes that you wake up today on Monday, it's a work day for all of us, I'd be ready to roll. And I think I underestimated the toll. By the way, while we're in this segment space of nonsense, what the hell are we doing with daylight savings? Can we just not?
Can we leave it where it is right
Yes,
now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just leave it where it is.
I think most people are on board with you there. I don't really know what the beginning of the changes was, but I felt like my entire life, everyone has been talking about daylight savings as if it were nonsense. So I don't really know why we keep doing it.
Yeah, let's just do away with it, and we'll go from there. But we do have a lot to do on the show. We're going to do our best to get to 6 o'clock as the voice is laboring today. So if this is your first experience with a radio show, please come back when it's better and the host is actually healthy as opposed to laboring through. We do have 1 hour down, okay? We met a little bit of a benchmark here. We still have 3 hours to go. So I'm going to wrap my mind around that during a break. But coming up on the other side is the triumphant return as one of the best players to ever play for the Utah men's basketball program, Britton Johnson, really good friends with Alex Jensen, will be our guest coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Going to let you hear from Coach Witt in about 25 minutes from right now. Interviewed Coach Witt last week, and we're going to bring it back around because my voice may not last until 6 o'clock tonight. Drinking the tea, drinking the water, got the cough drops going. So bear with me. But luckily, our next guest is a brilliant, phenomenal storyteller. So I can simply just bring him in, ask maybe one question, and let him talk for the next 25 minutes. One of my favorites, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah, returning to the program, is our guy, Britton Johnson. On a Monday. Britt, happy Monday, brother. How we doing?
Dude, what's going on with your voice, man? Who you been screaming at?
Well, no one. I went to Orlando with my brother over the weekend, and we saw the Bay Hill Golf Tournament, Arnie's spot, which was fun. And
Okay.
it must have been on the flight home, dude, because you know those planes, you got a lot of kids, a lot of people coming back from Disney, people not feeling well.
Yeah.
Because I felt great on my trip, and then I landed, went home within a couple of hours. I had this chest, nasal, whatever the hell is going on thing. So I don't know, man. I'm just doing my best to make it through. What's good with you, man? You good?
Oh, sounds like you need to get down to Murray and have yourself a pizza bender.
You
And I
stop it.
guarantee you'll feel better in the morning.
How dare you put that in my head during the show? You know what a big fan I am. What is it called? The Village?
Village.
What's it? Is it the
Italian Village.
Italian Village, man. My people, Britt, my people.
Your people, yeah. Italian Village is where we always hung out after our Murray High basketball games. And, pizza bender, dude. A calzone. It was good for the stomach. Spence, I'm doing great, man. It's good to hear your voice and good to join you here for a minute.
No, I miss you, man. I miss you up here, but I know that everything's going well down in St. George. And I just, you were one of the first people I thought of when I heard the rumor that it might be Alex, and certainly appreciate your time today now that it is official, Britt. So let's just start with your instant reaction when you heard that it might be Alex and then later on heard that it would be. What went through your mind?
Well, when I first heard it, I texted him. I said, "Al, are we coming or not?" And he responded back in his very Alex fashion. It was myself and Jeff. We were on a thread together. He responded back, "Man, I absolutely love Dallas, and this is just such a nice job." So not giving me anything, right? And also just saying, I know that's going to be a huge responsibility to try and get the youth back to where they were supposed to be. So I'm in my mind thinking, okay, he's playing coy. But the fact that he responded to my text about the topic was encouraging. So Jeff and I are both like, I think there's going to be hope. Alex plays his cards really close. He's not like me, Spence. He doesn't throw up all over himself and tell everybody every aspect of their life. That's probably, like Lindsay said, less is more. That's probably a good thing that he does, not just flinging random things out there. But when I heard he actually took the job, Spence, nothing but excitement, nothing but, I would just say anticipation in regard to this program going the right track. Is he going to come in and absolutely turn it around overnight? No, but he is going to be the best option that they could have gotten, for sure. I mean, I don't know who else I would choose other than him.
So let's dig into a couple things here. First, I wanted to get your thoughts on Craig, as Craig has been, given the door and relieved of his duties after just, almost 5 years, just under 4 years, 6 years on his deal. So Craig walks away with a little change. He's got a $5 million parachute. So of course he does not have to take a job at Maverick anytime soon. He'll be fine for a minute. Why do you think this ultimately with Craig did not work? Now, I know you're down south, so did you have a chance to hear Josh Grant on my show by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Several people sent that to me.
Okay, so give me your thoughts on that, Britt.
Oh, Josh is a babbling idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I'm just kidding. I assume he's listening. Josh is a good friend. No, there was definitely some key spots to what he was talking about with Craig, and Josh has a great pulse on the program. By the way, Josh dated my oldest sister, Spence. So
okay.
He came to our house, picked her up. We all thought he was the greatest thing in the world because he was the superstar in Utah. So Josh and his brothers, we all go way back.
Good.
Listen, Craig had this is what's hard. He has that awesome season at Utah State, but he also had, one of the best shot blockers in the country. He had Sam Merrill, I think, for a minute. Was Craig a great coach? He was a fine coach. He was a good man, someone I would have my son play for. worked hard, but you know, you got to have players. And I think just at the end of the day, you got to get the right players. And I remember hearing Josh talked a lot about getting the best players in Utah, and kind of that recipe, like what we had in his era and my era. Well, I agree with that to a degree. Like, look, that's going to win you WAC championships and Mountain West championships. That's not winning you a Big 12 championship. Alex Jensen's got to go out and get players. And we all know to get players in today's world is not about selling coach and the opportunity of Salt Lake City. It's freaking ching money. Let's go. You got to get some money. You got to get some NIL donors in there. You freaking think the number one player in the country is going to just go down and plop into Provo? No. You got to get money. Now, we got to get a couple big-time players, one or two, kind of like we did with Andre Miller, Mike Doliak, and then you fill in some in-state guys, the Britton Johnsons, Jeff Johnsons, the Josh Grants, the Alex Jensens, and then you have a coach that's got a brilliant mind like Majerus did. Alex Jensen's that coach, and now we're talking. Now we're rocking and rolling. But think about it. To get an Andre Miller or a Mike Doliak, or to keep those two guys, like say, you know, they made their names here, right? And then you keep them for year 2, year 3. Today's world, yeah, you're going to have to pay up. Otherwise, Andre would have transferred to Texas, and Mike would have transferred to Oregon, and they both would have made $1 million. So let's just not kid ourselves. The name of the game is someone's going to have to like donate some money, or there's going to have to be a big pay where you get one or two players, and then Alex will get some good Utah guys, and then he'll take care of the rest with his brilliant coaching and his preparation and his X's and O's and his ability to find guys around him to go out and recruit the right people, like Majerus got Juddy and Donnie to get the players. So it's kind of my mind. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, Josh kind of said that, but other than I think Josh mentioned that he would rely heavily on getting the in-state guys, and I think they're going to be our second tier guys we need to get.
So a couple things. First of all, when it comes to, and I was paraphrasing you the past couple of weeks because I can remember oftentimes you sharing stories about Coach Majerus ripping into this player or that player or you, quite frankly, but never really did with Alex. Am I remembering that correctly? And then attendant to that, tell us anecdotally some of the things that Rick used to share about Alex Jensen. He's on the record saying that Alex was one of the smartest players he ever coached, but I seem to remember oftentimes, Britt, you sharing a lot of stories about that relationship, and obviously Alex went on to coach with Rick before Rick passed away, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I specifically remember Alex Spence, like on that Final Four run during the year, especially in the tournament, grabbing my jersey, screaming in my face, the right spots to be on the floor, the right way to position myself, the way to play somebody. I remember him behind me screaming like, force him left, force him right, timeouts. We'd walk out of the timeouts. He'd come over and grab me, Andre, everybody, and explain things. He was a coach from, you know, he probably started having a coaching mentality when he was 5 years old. He was a player's coach, and he knew how to win. I mean, listen, Coach Majerus did all the preparation stuff, right? He was the ultimate preparation, get us all in the hotel ballroom. He had charts on the walls of every single player, their tendencies. He had his assistant coaches doing that, and then Coach would do a really good job of, laying it out, sort of teaching it to us. But the execution of it all came from Alex. He was the one, and Drew Hansen as well. You know, we just had smart players on our team, but Alex was the leader of that. I look at that in kind of like football terms, Spence, like that smart quarterback that can become a head coach one day, right? I mean, your energetic, rah-rah kind of doofuses like me on the court, we're not born to be coaches, right? It's like Mike Singletary, who tried to coach the 49ers. You look at the guy, he would smash anybody in front of him, but X's and O's and coaches didn't exactly work. Well, Alex just was thinking like a coach as a player, and then he got his chance to coach, in the G League. He's an assistant coach at St. Louis. He's an assistant coach at the Jazz. He developed Rudy Gobert. He taught Rudy Gobert the game. And then sometimes, Spence, it's just when you're sitting down and having conversations with someone and you're listening to the way that the game kind of plays out in their mind, and you're like, holy crap, that's something that I would have never thought of. You know, like if I'm playing this team, I would pick up their point guard with my 6'9" guy who's athletic just to disrupt the point guard and his fast break player, something like that. Alex would just say things about games and situations, and you're like, my gosh, that's actually really smart. So along with what he learned from Rick in preparing for games and just his kind of brilliance, X's and O's, he's going to be phenomenal, I think, for Utah.
So your points about the collective are very well taken. And I said this a couple times over the past few weeks as the search was kind of going on, whether it's Alex, whether it's Richard Pitino, whether you resurrect Rick Majerus, whoever it is going to ask Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall simply the same question. Where are we at economically? What is the financial infrastructure of this program? Can I keep up with not just the schools in the Big 12, but every school across America, not the least of which, Britt, is a school about 40 miles down south that this year has 2 7-figure players on their roster, and next year is paying A.J. Debance $7 million for 5 months of basketball. So as you talk to, your former teammates and other people connected to the program, what is, I guess the way I'll ask it, Britt, is what's the confidence level that right now the Crimson Collective or whatever Utah is going to utilize for the economic health of the program is where it needs to be to compete? Because it doesn't matter how good your coach is. Like, there's no such thing as a great coach that did not have great players. You have to have talents. Yeah. And I don't think Craig had enough talent, quite frankly, but that's a different topic. Is there optimism and confidence in the alumni base that this school is where it needs to be to support its basketball program financially?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I don't know numbers on the budget, but I just know that there needs to be obviously something brought to the table to give Alex something to work with, because you're absolutely right. Alex can be as good of a coach as we possibly can get. He is, but the players got to be able to utilize the coaching or be talented. It's like I've always said, either to you or somebody, I said, you can give Stevie Wonder a Corvette, doesn't mean he can drive it, right? So you can give Alex Jensen and all of his amazing coaching to a bunch of crappy players, doesn't mean they're going to be able to utilize it. You got to get good players. And I don't think Alex needs 6, 7, 8 phenomenal players. I think he needs 2 to 3. And honestly, that's what Majerus did. That was his, like I said earlier, his MO. He had 3 NBA guys, maybe a fourth in me who dipped his toes in the NBA waters, and a fifth with Alex himself a little bit. But you get 3 just absolute studs, and we've got to find a way. The university has to find a way to give Alex, a budget to do that. And I think, again, everyone can say they're a good coach, but there really are just some that get the game at an intelligent level. I apologize, I keep using football terminology, but there's just some of those special coaches out there, right, that you see that know how to take whatever roster they have, a Nick Saban, right, and turn it into a championship caliber team, because it's not just X's and O's, it's culture as well. And you create a culture that's like, when you come into this practice, no one's better than the other person. Everyone treats each other the same. Everyone works just as hard as the other person. I'll never forget, I think it was you and I were either questioning or asking questions to Coach Popovich, or we were listening to David Locke ask him questions, and Popovich said something that I'll never forget. He said, I can yell at Tim Duncan the same way I can yell at a rookie. And that's culture that he created there at the Spurs that made them such a winning franchise forever. And Majerus created that, right? Winning coaches create that. That's what Alex will be able to create. So again, 3 to, if you can get 4, studs, but the rest of them, I think he'll be able to recruit players from Utah or the Mountain West area and just make up for what he doesn't have in a depth of 7 players with really good coaching, with team basketball, so I hope, Spence, and I believe that they're capable of doing it, that they can come up with a budget to take care of, some of those big stars. It might not happen next year, right? But I think as you give Alex a chance to prove himself and he brings in some awesome assistants that can go out there and find the right players, I think it's doable.
All right, let me move in this direction because, I can remember talking with you and some other alums as the Larry Kraskowiak era was kind of unfolding. And it felt like there were, I don't want to speak for you, so I'm just going to ask the question and give you the space. It felt like there were maybe some alums that didn't feel like Larry was embracing, that element of what Utah basketball is. I don't fully recall, but I'm bringing it up because I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit, Britt, and then again, I'm just going to lay back and give you the space, because when I had Josh on, he referenced that a lot of alums attempted to contact Craig during the 4 years, and he wasn't necessarily amenable to those connections. Paraphrasing a bit, you can go listen to the Josh Grant interview up on our podcast page. And look, while as much as anybody, I respect and appreciate the history of Utah basketball and guys like you and that team that was around when I was in school with you as your peer, I don't know that it really is the job of the head coach to answer every alumni phone call when you have a job to do. So to be clear, I think there is a role for past Utes. Certainly, I mean, now that Alex is the coach, I'm sure it will change. But what's fair to say about what portion of the job description says that that's something that you need to do? And how do you balance that line, Britt, between appeasing the alums and also doing your job? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like every alumni, former player, feels like they're not getting treated like good enough. I mean, I remember I was mentored by some dude at NC State when I was in the D League, and he was complaining to me that NC State wasn't treating him good enough, and yet he and I sat on the front row of an NC State North Carolina basketball game, and I'm looking around like, what are you complaining about? You know, I've heard BYU football players, complain that they're not treated. I kind of feel like that it's just something we all, like, if we're not getting all the gear we want and not being treated with like front row tickets, we all just bitch and complain. I think it's kind of just in our DNA. So, I mean, Josh might be right about some stuff, but every time I called Craig, he was nice, invited me to practice, had me speak to the team, but I'm a real likable guy. And so
Good point.
People really like having me around.
Good point.
There's a difference there. And Josh, I'm like, I don't know if I'd invite him to the dinner table. No, I'm kidding. If Josh is listening, he's going to hate my guts. Listen, I just think everyone kind of gets that feel and that mentality, like I should be being treated better. And who knows, right? Maybe for Craig, and because the team wasn't doing that great, it was hard for him to have some of the former superstars like Josh Grant around. Maybe for him and his staff, it just felt like almost like they were letting us down. So it's like, what do you think they're going to do? Call us up and invite us over for breakfast every morning? Probably not. You know, I mean, look, winning solves everything. It even solves like all of us former alumni guys boo-hooing that we're not getting good enough treatment. If the program's winning, the doors are open, and they want everyone at practice. They want everyone a part of it. But that would just be my guess, is that Craig was probably not feeling like all that great. And Josh, I know, has a good relationship with Alex, and so maybe he'll be inviting Josh in every once in a while into practice. I don't know what he wants, but Alex is going to bring his own team, his own coaching staff that he wants. I keep hearing rumors, Spence, that he might get Andre Miller. I think it would be a smart move to do that, but I don't know, right? And until you're like in that coaching world and you're making all those daily decisions and phone calls, and you're in the trenches, the bus trips, the plane trips, the hotel trips, and you're around the personalities that are going to help you win, who knows, right? So I actually have no idea who Alex is going to bring on board. I mean, I've had people texting me, tell Alex to bring you in. I'm like, yeah, I've been working for General Motors for the last 9 years in the car world. He's going to bring me in? What the hell am I going to tell all these players? Your tires look like they have bad tread on them? I'm like, people are so funny. You should call you to be an assistant. I'm like, good hell, no. He's not going to call me to be an assistant, but I'm going to go cheer him on,
Would you be interested? For real, would you be interested in being an assistant coach for Alex?
No. I would be flattered if he asked me, but no, I would not be interested. I just want him to do well. I want the university to do well, and I just want to quit. I want to keep on complaining as a former player that I'm not getting enough gear.
and look, I don't mean to be disrespectful, right? Like, by the way, can you imagine and I told Josh this when he joined the show. For our younger Ute fans who didn't get to see him play, if Josh Grant was born like 10 or 15 years later, he would have been a 15-year NBA guy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
no doubt. I always say that about you, too. I don't mean to rub it in. But
no, it's okay. You've told me that hundreds of times. We've had wonderful conversations on that. Listen, I mean, you can sit and play the game all the time. Like, I should have this career, I should have that career. At the end of the day, I got to play in a national championship. I got to make amazing friends. And now when we have barbecues, we all just sit around and make fun of Coach Majerus, God rest his soul, as he's dead. And we laugh our heads off. You know what I mean? Because what else is there to do other than just try to make fun of the situations we were in that were actually pretty brutal? You would probably consider a lot of them straight up mental abuse, the way he coached us. He ain't coaching that way in today's world, I'll tell you that much. But
no, you can't. Go ahead.
No, but we had a good group of guys. Funny enough, we still have a text message thread with myself, Jeff, Nick Jacobson, Trace Caton, and Chris Burgess. He's on there, but we spend most of the time just ripping on BYU because we're still mad at him for being a traitor and leaving us and going down there. But we've kept him on the thread just because we feel like it's still the good thing to do,
For sure. I actually wondered if they would talk to Burge about taking the head coaching job. But since you brought up Burgess, let me move over here, Britt, because
I love Burgess, by the way. I don't think he's a traitor.
Who doesn't?
He's a good friend.
Yeah, everybody loves Burge. There's nothing not to love. If you don't like Chris Burgess, it's a you problem, quite frankly. But let me discuss this dynamic. You'll be good with this because I've known Alex a long time and his wife Natalie. They're great people, but you know them on a level that I don't. And Alex is what I would describe as a little bit of an introvert. I don't think that's a bad thing per se, and don't mistake his quiet nature for anything other than him being introspective. But is he going, Britt, to have to come out of the show a little bit? And a lot of guys that are a little bit quiet and a little bit dry are the funniest guys behind the scenes with loud and funny personalities. They just don't like to be front facing to the public. So if we take away the dynamic of Alex as a coach and a player developmental mind, which he's obviously elite at, Alex the person, what does that look like on the recruiting trail?
You know what? He'll probably have to adjust, right? Just like all of us when we go into some kind of a new situation. This is his first head coaching job as the face of the program. But Alex actually, he's a funny, witty guy. He and I have a lot of the same similarities in movies. We joke about the same stuff. But as far as just going in and sitting down in a living room and kind of brightening the place up, I mean, that's okay. That's not like his his number one strength, but his ability to probably sit and tell a parent why his coaching style and what he already knows about the player and what they need to get better at, and how he'll help them get to the NBA or how he'll help them have the best career possible, will probably be how he'll close deals and sell and win. You know what I mean? That's going to be his strength. Will he probably find himself needing to I don't know, get a little more enthusiastic? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Majerus came in my living room and told me I looked like an AIDS victim, right to my face, to my parents, and I still signed to go play with the guy. So I did it because they kept saying I would be the next Van Horn, or University of Utah is the place to put people into the NBA. So thanks, Coach, for the wonderful compliment. Where do I sign? Yeah, kind of weird, right? But I still went. So again, that was a different era than the era today. So I will adjust. He'll figure it out. He's actually a pretty fun guy to be around, so I'm not worried about that. And he's going to get some fun, some probably pretty dynamic assistant coaches. I mean, that's where I would actually love. If I think about being an assistant coach, Spence, I would have a lot of fun going to people's living rooms and selling their kid on why they would thrive and have a phenomenal experience in Salt Lake, in Utah, being around, incredible people there, building a network there. It's a strong economy. So if they want to try to have a business mindset after basketball, there's opportunity there. That's where I would have fun. But I'm too locked into a career right now where I don't want to leave. And I'm not about to pull a Josh Grant and go beg Alex to hire me on radio. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. He didn't do that. But it kind of felt like that.
Wow. Wow, Britton Johnson coming off the top rope. You're going to get a text.
You heard the interview. He was pretty much making it sound like he and Jimmy Soto should be hired. I thought it was funny. Good for him, man.
Britton,
Josh probably would be helpful.
I conducted the interview. I didn't hear it. I was the one who interviewed him.
That's right. See, I didn't put two and two together.
You heard the interview, he says.
Hey, I thought it was those bleepy, what's down the street on the other station.
I don't know what you're talking about. You have to pull ratings to exist in this market. Only one afternoon drive show does. So
the ones that freaking fired me because I forgot the general manager's name. Those guys.
Yeah, I don't. Again, that does not striking a chord. I don't know what you're talking about. It's Lord Voldemort stuff over on this program. I appreciate how self-deprecating you are. I honestly think you'd be a phenomenal assistant coach. I really believe that to be true. I know that you're locked in and you've got a good career and you guys are doing well down south and all that. But I always tried to build up I was the Doc Rivers to the Britton Johnson on the radio, right? Like I was trying to build up your confidence and remind you that you are an NBA player. You did have a great career and you were, again, just a few years too late. With how the modern day game is played, you would have played in the pros for the NBA for more than a decade, Britt. I appreciate the self-deprecate. Here's the deal. A guy built like you needs the confidence I have. The guy with the confidence that I have needs a build like yours. If there was some way to merge our strengths, we'd be the white LeBron together is what we'd be.
Wait. Whose face would we take?
Mine, dude. Right? Come on, dude. Come on. Don't be silly.
Yeah. Because you look like Bradley Cooper and I look like Ichabod Crane.
Stop it. See, I appreciate.
Come on.
You're a handsome guy. Look, Lindsay's a 10. She's not marrying some goob, all right? Take that as...
she has bad eyesight, right? Like,
okay.
She doesn't see well, so it's like...
Right.
Man, I did marry a 10. I ain't going to lie.
Oh, Lindsay's the best.
I got lucky.
Yeah, she's great. This is bringing back good memories. So before I say...
mean sometimes, but that's okay.
No, all good, man. Before I set you loose, you've kind of alluded to it. The rumors are Andre as the lead assistant. Now, Andre is coaching in the G League. And look, I obviously, as a Gen Xer, somebody who grew up in the 90s, believes that the instant credibility and cachet you have when you walk into a gym with Andre Miller on your bench is too good to pass up. I don't know if the younger generation believes that, but before I set you loose, what would you have to say to our listeners about the type of assistant that Andre would make if Alex goes in that direction and Andre takes the job?
Oh, man. My interactions with Andre are always surprising because he was quiet, but he's one of those guys that when you just get him talking and you get him kind of loosened up a little bit, he starts to really tell you just how experienced he is in life. I mean, because he grew up in one of the poorest areas of the country in Compton, California, but grew up with a phenomenal mom that put education really, really high as a priority. And then you take a black kid from Compton who absolutely thrived in Salt Lake City, Utah, right? And then he goes and has a 19-year NBA career. Now he's coaching. I was with him when he learned to water ski in Lake Powell. He's one of these guys that he's always absorbing information and trying to learn as much as possible. And you just appreciate that about him. He's easy to be around. He's fun to be around. And he makes you he's going to make you a better player if you play with him. But I'm almost positive as a coach, he's going to be able to teach people, the what he went through, he's going to be able to teach that and help them to make themselves a better player, whether that's on the court, whether that's making better decisions in life. I mean, Andre coming from probably not the greatest influences, in his childhood. I'm not talking about his parents or his family, but, some of the trouble that you can get in an area like that growing up, he became an incredible human being and made a ton for himself, not only just in basketball, but he's quite the business mind as well. I know he and our buddy Nick Jacobson do some businesses together. But then you don't just get handed a head coaching job in the G League in today's world unless, you're a good coach, unless you show that you can lead a team. I think he would be phenomenal, Spence. I don't know how you wouldn't want to take him. That ultimately is up to Alex Jensen. I know that there's some other candidates out there. I know that Alex is still close with Donnie Daniels, and Donnie Daniels' son is coaching in the college ranks right now. He's a phenomenal coach. And then Alex probably has a list of guys that he's passed through in his NBA career and his time at St. Louis that we don't even know about that he could bring in that would be awesome. So, Andre to me feels and sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm going to trust whatever Alex Jensen does.
You know what? Do you have time for one more? Because you just jarred my mind. Do you have time for one more question?
Hey, I mean, your listeners are like just listening with all ears right now. Like people have pulled over on the side of the road to keep this going. So let's go.
No, that's what we do.
Sure.
That you and I, that's what we do. All right. So one more question here because you just jarred something. You played in the D League, which is now the G League. And Richard Smith, you know, Smitty, he's now a consistent guest on the show. He did a really good job of kind of laying everything out last week about how hard it is to coach in the G League because whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether you're a front office exec or a broadcaster or whatever, you don't want to be there. You are there as a means to an end, as a conduit to the big leagues.
Yeah.
So, what does that say about Alex that in a difficult, challenging coaching spot, he won a G League title and won G League Coach of the Year? What does that say?
Well, listen, it says it's enormous because everyone is like a wild dog going after, a meal that it hasn't had for 20 days. Everyone's hungry. Players. It was funny because, when I was in the G League, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this isn't as hard as the NBA, but it was harder than the NBA in a lot of ways. Spence, you and I sat and watched NBA games. Guys don't play defense the first three quarters. There was a night when I guarded Kevin Garnett, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he doesn't seem like he cares that he's guarding me. I kind of just thought it's because he could care less because he didn't know who I was, but he's playing 82 games, and they start to kind of sag, or they start to sort of drag a little bit in the middle of the season, and then they save it for the fourth quarter. Where in the G League, D League, the minor leagues, from the moment the ball goes up, it's 100 miles per hour. Everyone's trying to get out of there. Every coach is coaching as intense as possible. The referees are dialed in. The front office, like you said, is dialed in. So the intensity of it was insane because everyone wanted out of there. So, yes, for him to win in an environment like that, look, it wasn't like the NCAA tournament, but there was a physicality and an aggressive kind of manner on the floor that reminded me of like the NCAA tournament. Because again, it was like every man for himself, but everyone trying to just absolutely go as hard as possible because you looked up in the stands and it was full of NBA scouts. And if it wasn't full of NBA scouts, you knew every game was trying to get the best game possible to send it to the next team. So I think it's remarkable that Alex won a championship in that league because he was coaching in a very intense environment. So, yeah, I think that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, all right, my guy. Thanks so much for the time today. We miss you up this way, but I know you're doing well. So nothing but love and respect for you and, of course, Lindsay and all the kids. How's my girl Goldie? Is she hanging in there?
She's good, man. She's a little gangster.
Oh, I love it.
Kind of a funny little girl. And then Houston gets back in 5.5 months.
Wow.
Just out there trying to survive out in the jungles of Africa. So he's doing good.
Good, man. Great to hear. Well, love to everybody. Thanks for the time, and let's chat soon, okay?
All right, brother. See you, Spence.
Britton Johnson, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Good buddies with Alex Jensen. Some good insight there from Britt. All right, we are going to catch a break. Britton stops by today courtesy of our friends at Prize Picks. Here's the deal. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Utah. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few players' stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. Second half of the basketball season is here. Race to the playoffs is heating up. On Prize Picks, the best place to win cash on your favorite sports. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code ESPN700. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. You don't even have to win to get the $50. It is automatically included when you use the promo code ESPN700 on our good friends at Prize Picks. Run your game all season long. All right. Interviewed Coach Witt last week. If you missed it, we're going to bring it back around. Your boy needs a little bit of a break from the voice stuff so we can make it to 6. Josh Furlong stops by. Kurt Schmidt stops by. Then we'll move into the 5 o'clock hour on a Monday right here on ESPN 700. All right, show rolling along. It is not football season, but it's never a bad time to talk football because spring football for the Utes right around the corner. The head ball coach himself, Coach Witt, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Spencer. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I always appreciate your time. So just kind of take us behind the scenes a little bit. What's this time of year like? What are the boxes you're trying to check prior to the beginning of spring ball here in just a couple of weeks?
Well, last couple months we've been in what we call winter player development. It's primarily in the weight room, getting bigger, faster, and stronger, and then on the field doing agility work and that type of thing, and mixed in with some football walkthroughs that the NC2A allows you to do. So that's been since they got back in early January for school up until next week. When we go into spring break, that'll put an end to that. Then when we get back from spring break, we have a couple days of review, and then we start spring ball on Thursday, the 20th of March.
You know, it's no secret, Coach, that you guys have a lot of roster changeover. And even when you have good years now, you're going to have a lot of roster changeover because of the nature of the sport. How's the process been to get the new coaches up to speed with what you want them to do and get the new players to understand, as you always say, mentally, they need to understand what you're asking them to do, and physically, they need to be capable of doing those things. What's the process like integrating the new pieces?
I think relatively speaking to where we are and relative to the time of year, I think we're right on track. We've got the offense essentially put in, and now it's just reviewing it and making sure we get as much opportunity to expose them to it as possible. It's been a very good transition with the new coaches. We have 3 new coaches on the offensive side, and of course with Coach Beck and his new scheme that he's brought in, the players have really embraced that. Defensively, pretty much business as usual. No change over there. The scheme has remained the same for years and years. In as far as the basics, we tweak it a little bit here and there, but I think based on where we are early March as a team right now, we're in good shape.
So we had Jason Beck on the show. It was fun to get to know him not too long ago, and I asked him the question, Kyle, point blank, is Devin Dampier your starting quarterback? And he said he is. So I will take the opportunity to ask you, for a fan base that's always wondering who's going to be starting under center. The plan moving forward is Devin, right? Devin Dampier under center?
Well, if we played today, he would be the guy.
There we go.
So he's obviously got a great grasp of the offense, having been in it in years past, and so it's nothing new to him. He's like having another coach on the field right now. I mean, he's just completely versed in what we're doing, and so he's doing a great job. Isaac Wilson is really entrenched right now as number 2. Now that's not to say that can't change because everything's a competition, but Isaac has done a nice job assimilating the new offense as well.
It's interesting, Kyle. I'm sure you know this. More than a dozen teams have straight up canceled their spring game. The latest to do it, Oklahoma, is changing their just kind of the way they go about it. But USC, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Nebraska as well, they've just punted on spring games. Is that anything you guys have discussed up there as far as what to do with the spring game?
Absolutely, that's still a discussion. And right now, as we speak, a spring game in its format that our fans and players are used to through the years is still in place. That could be, subject to change based on how things go through spring. If we get thin at certain positions, or there's things that can change that. And so, at the moment, spring game is a go, but I'm not going to rule it out. Just circumstantially down the road, depending on what happens.
Well, and look, I wouldn't blame. I don't want to see it go away because ultimately all of us just enjoy the spring celebration of your program and covering the game and just kind of being together and talking football is the fun thing we get to do as far as my little spot in this ecosystem. But I completely understand it, Kyle, because the roster limit changes things, right? I mean, 105 on game day, and at last count, you had 109. That might be upped as of now. So is the new roster limit something that you have to keep in mind? I mean, you always have to keep player safety in mind. In the past couple of years, you guys have just been riddled with bad luck and bad injuries. How does the new roster limit change? It feels like walk-ons are going away, right? You're going to get scholarships for all your players. But how does the new roster limit change the way you have to approach your job?
Well, it's a big impact, and the roster limit As of now, nothing is set completely in stone, but it's looking like the roster limit will need to be adhered to by your first contest, which would be August 30th for us, the UCLA game. And so we would be able to train more than the 105 during summer conditioning and then during fall camp, but then you have to be at 105. So essentially you're going to have to make some cuts after fall camp to get to that 105 number, because I don't know anyone that's going to go into fall camp with 105, because if you get guys injured and you don't have guys in the bullpen, so to speak, you're not going to be able to be at 105 healthy bodies. And so most teams, I believe, will go into fall camp with 120, 125 guys, and then when you get to that first game, there'll be a certain amount that have weeded themselves out due to season-ending injuries, and hopefully not many, but it's bound to happen to some teams. And then you just choose your best 105 at that point. And unfortunately, there's going to be some guys that worked hard through camp that just aren't going to have that opportunity, and that's how you have to do it. Because like I said, if you start at 105, just through attrition, you're gonna fall below that, and that's already a razor thin number to be able to operate. So to me, that's how most teams are going to go about it.
Well, and Kyle, if you're able to win the conference and make it to the postseason and be a playoff team, you could play 17 or 18 games, and without the ability to add to during the season, that feels like a small group. I know listeners are probably thinking 105, that's plenty of players, but this is not a contact sport, Coach. As you know, this is a violent sport, and every week you're going to lose guys. And so without the ability to add to during the season, does 105 feel a little bit low to you?
Very much so. And it was, our understanding initially was that you had the 105, the first game, and then if you had season-ending injuries, you could replace those guys. Now they're saying no, that's not going to be the case, and so that 105 can get into the high to mid 90s real quick. And college football, we have pretty much everybody operates with scout teams that give the look. Your scout defense gives the offense a look, and vice versa. And so as you start to creep those numbers down, you're going to have to think about more of an NFL model where it's self-serve, where the offense services the defense, and vice versa, rather than having the full-on scout teams.
How has the new model changed your job day to day? Because I was thinking about this. You obviously have Robert Blecken as your general manager. Is there a portion of this, Coach, that is taken a little bit off your plate because you have to have other people, more of a pro model with some of the guys that are in charge of the finances, guys that are in charge of recruiting? You've always had recruiting coordinators, but does hiring a guy like Robert as your GM and the infrastructure you have in place, does it actually to allow you to maybe focus more on coaching than, having to be in charge of literally every piece of information and every piece of logistics when it comes to Utah football?
Well, it's helped the assistant coaches stay out of it. They've been able to stay out of the business end, and they just focus on making each guy in their room better and coaching them up and getting them ready for the season. I still have my hand in everything, and that's not going to change. I mean, I don't know any head coach in the country that's at least right now going to completely turn over personnel to and this again at the collegiate level. Pro level is a whole different deal, and you have those full blown personnel departments. We're still building that. We don't have quite the manpower yet that we would need to be able to do that. But as the head coach in college, you're going to find most of the head coaches completely involved in personnel decisions and making sure they're monitoring what's going on that side of the ball, as well as the pure football end of it. But again, for assistant coaches, we try to keep them completely out of the business end and just in the football end.
I see. How are you as a delegator, Coach?
Getting better. It's been a process.
Yeah.
And 21 years into it now, I guess I've learned a few things in that regard, and I'm more. Just letting a few things go, not letting them go, but turning them over to other people, and just being able to trust them and make sure I feel good about that it's going to get done. And that's been something that I have gotten better at. I still could probably do a better job of it, but I am who I am. But I'd say I've made improvement in that area.
Catching up with Coach Witt, head ball coach, Utah football, a couple weeks away from Utah spring ball. You referenced UCLA opening game. Haven't been able to kick the tires with you on the schedule since it came out. But my main question is October 18th, Saturday at BYU. I don't know. For me, Coach, I feel like that should be during rivalry week. I like it either beginning or the end, and it's smack dab in the middle of October. What were your thoughts when you saw the release and the game against Brigham Young was October 18th?
Well, it wasn't the first thing I looked at. I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's obviously that we take them in order as they unfold, and we've got a big one at UCLA on the 30th against a really good Big Ten opponent. I mean, they struggled last year, but there's no shortage of personnel down there. I can promise you that. And so they'll be athletic, they'll be fast, they'll be well coached, and so it'll be the second year under Coach Foster, and you know, we got to be turning all our attention, all our focus on that, obviously. But you're right. You know, we do have a rivalry game, and it would seem to make sense that would be put at the end of the season. But so far, the Big 12 has not got to that point yet. I haven't had discussion with them and say why, but right now that's something that they have not implemented.
I wonder if this moves the needle for you at all, because obviously the leaders of the SEC and the Big Ten continue to meet without everybody else in college football to dictate what the future of college football is going to look like. And it seems like they're kind of calling the shots. They want to expand the CFP with more AQs for their conferences. And obviously, and you've been front-facing and honest about this, if you are not part of that lunch table, you're in a safe landing spot at the Q4 conference. But is there any concern as a member of the Big 12 what the Big 10 and the SEC seem to continue to try to do with this power play?
Well, I don't know if concern's the right word, but I think that we don't have much say. I mean, they're the power brokers, and that's just how it is, and they're going to be the ones that call most of the shots. I don't see any other way around that. I would personally like it to get to 16 teams as full blown playoff, and I've been saying that it will get there eventually for a lot of years. And people say, oh, it's not going to be for several years, but here we're looking at going from 12 to 16. Very soon, and so we'll see what happens. But in answer to your question, I mean, they're the guys that have the most clout, have the most say, and that's just at least at the present during the present time and this present setup, that is not going to change in the foreseeable future.
All right, Coach, before I say you loose, I always appreciate your time. I didn't cover the story of whether or not you would come back very much because in my mind, I'm like, but there was a race that was made, and they're coming back. Very curious to know.
And so it's I can tell you the overriding factors, and one of the more factors that was weighed more heavily was the disappointing season that we had and the way that things into our fifth QB and all that stuff. But nobody feels sorry. Create or it will bad to have that final go around, and so that was a big factor. Everything was involved, my energy level, what's best for the program. That ultimately is the most important thing, is what's best for the program going forward, and so that.
Swinging a golf club at all?
Say that again.
Swinging a golf?
Yeah, not. Through the end of spring ball, it's all football.
And well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I mean, my voice sounded like that.
Last week?
Yeah, a week ago. Appreciate Kyle stopping by. I interviewed Coach Witt last week when I had my pipes. Today I do not. We're doing our best to make it through. We're going to catch a break. Going to bring in Josh Furlong coming up. More Utah conversation. Kurt Schmidt for a little RSL. Friend from Farmer and afternoon. Doug, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Well, thank you. Happy Monday to you. It's great to be back.
It's been a long, long time. I'm glad you're back because once upon a time we met up and I told you I was having some trouble sleeping, and you helped me out with some of your CBD gummy products that were able to help me really get a good night's sleep. So, Farmer and Chemist, you guys work with CBD products to help people that suffer from a bunch of different afflictions. listeners who have trouble sleep, Doug?
Thanks. Sleep is issues that we face in society. We stay up too late. We get much caffeine. We stress about things. And a lot of people are using all kinds of medications to help get sleep. And Farmer and Chemist has a CBD product provide natural way to sleep and stay asleep better, rest overnight, be able to over out the next. It's remarkable.
About listeners suffering from physical pain and don't want to go down the dangerous, addicting path of opioid medication, how can you help them over in chemist some physical pain they might be?
This is also one of the weekend, and we would just have taken ibuprofen and Tylenol every day, or like you, we're really opioids to get through the day. That's not a good solution. Farmer CBD gummies and salve, local pain and inflammation or whole body inflammation, are tremendously effective at providing a safe, non-opioid alternative that relieves pain and inflammation and helps you be able to do the things that you want to do every day, whether that's ski, hit the golf clubs like you were just saying, or go for a walk, lift weights, whatever. Farmer and Chemist CBD products can help you do that. It reduces inflammation and pain.
Sometimes I feel like I love my dog more than any other person, right? And there are a lot of people out there that love their pets. And, interestingly enough, our pets suffer. You guys have some cool products over at Farmer and Chemist. Tell us about it.
The pets are part of our families. We get photos with our pets. We want to take good care of them. We take care of us. And Farmer and Chemist CBD products, tinctures, animals, and chews, dogs are fantastic at relief, like arthritis, pain, that giddy up and go that our pets are starting to lose. Chemist CBD products. So maybe you think of different down to and help that inflammation and pain for us and for our furry friends.
All right, Doug, before I set you loose, I know you have listeners on the benefits of the products you have, Farmer and Chemist.
Absolutely. We're glad to be back to us. So we're happy to offer all ESPN 700 a 20% discount on Farmer and Chemist products, which have not changed prices for years. So 20% off ESPN 700 is the promo code at farmerandchemist.com. Or you can come into the store and see Ann and Jason and Cammie and Jeff, myself, the rest of the team, and just mention that you heard the ad on ESPN 700, and you'll get 20% off. You can come into the store at 7719 South Main Street in Midvale.
Doug, great to hear your voice, friend. Glad you're back. Reach out if we can do anything for you, okay?
Right on. Have a great afternoon.
All right, Doug from Farm. Definitely check it out. Get that ESPN. We're going to catch a break. Long from station, Kurt Schmidt rolls by. For a little bit of RSL, we got plenty to do in about 2 hours to do it on a Monday show right here on ESPN 700. NFL free agency doesn't technically get rolling officially until Wednesday, but the deals are being announced and coming down at a rapid pace. We'll get to some NFL news coming up in just a little bit. Chris Camerati texted in, and he says, I sound like I'm dying. I'm doing the best I can. I don't think I'm dying, but the voice is not optimal for 4 hours of radio. But the good news is Porter booked a lot of tremendous guests that know how to talk for a long, long time. That describes our next guest. Josh Furlong covers the Utes for KSL. Josh, happy Monday, man. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. It sounds like you got something that I got last week too.
Yeah, it's not fun then. As you know, I don't think I'm sick, but it's like a chest, throat, sinus situation of some sort. Does that jive with what you were dealing with?
Exactly. It was like trying to talk was a nightmare.
Well, good news, Josh, is what I do for a living to pay my bills is talk for 4 hours every afternoon. So I guess I guess we'll kind of see how this goes. But I appreciate your time.
You'll be okay, Ben. You'll be fine.
I know, right? It's wild. But since you and I last spoke, the news that you reported was in the works and others reported was close getting done came across the line. So the Josh Furlong take that Alex Jensen is now the 17th, set to become the 17th head coach in Utah men's basketball history.
Yeah, I mean, I think this played out exactly the way that Utah wanted it, right? Obviously, the boosters were excited for this. They wanted to be able to have Alex Jensen come in and coach Utah. A lot of effort was put into making sure that this went down. You know, you could look at the timing and everything and kind of see the way that the timeline of how they fired Craig versus when they hired Alex just really shows that they kind of had this orchestrated approach to this. And so, by all accounts, that's a success, right? I mean, the fact that you have your coach and the season's not officially over yet means good things. And the fact that it's a guy that has the fan base, you know, rejuvenated, excited. You know, a lot of people are talking about they just want this season to be done so that they can focus on next year. You know, I mean, I think there's some truth to that. But the reality is this isn't just some easy situation that Alex Jensen's going to walk into, right? Like, I'd have to assume that there's some assurances from the athletic department side that, you know, they're going to do certain things to be able to ensure that he's okay, you know, that he brings an experience to Utah. Yeah, fans are going to be excited about Alex Jensen, but, you know, there's got to be more that's done. And I look at it more from, let's say, even the game day side, right? Like, you come into that arena, you've got to be able to have fan support. You've got to be able to have an exciting environment. And if you're not getting that, especially at the college level, it just becomes another game, and it just becomes another arena that there really is no home court advantage. So I think, you know, if you can pair that with excitement from the fans, who are obviously going to bring their excitement when they get to the game, but if you can pair that with a good environment inside the Huntsman Center, have a good, you know, to get people excited other than just, you know, flex for the jumbotron type thing, I think that pairing can go really well, and you can start to see some good things. Obviously, money has to come with that as well, but I think you're seeing some things changing around Utah that they're realizing they have to kind of make some adjustments, or else Utah's going to get left behind. And it doesn't matter if it's Alex Jensen coaching, it doesn't matter if it's Craig Smith or Larry Krystkowiak. You've got to find something that works, and it's all got to kind of blend together.
We heard a lot of, I guess I'll just call it pontification on possibilities outside of Alex Jensen. What's your understanding, Josh, of how many candidates were interviewed, or does it appear that Alex was the guy for Mark Harlan all along?
You know, Alex was the guy from the very beginning. They still had to do their due diligence and interview some other guys. My understanding was 2 or 3. I believe Pitino was in there. Richard Pitino was in there as kind of a finalist in terms, you know, if for whatever reason that Alex Jensen didn't want to take the job. But by all accounts, this was all Alex Jensen. And, you know, I think the way that they approached this, they had already kind of gotten their fillers out there to see is he even interested in this. It's not worth it to go down this road if you know they do all this stuff, they get the booster support, they get all these things going, and Alex says, no, I still want to stay in the NBA. So, you know, I think there was a mutual benefit here in terms that they both wanted to kind of be with each other, and so I think it played out the way that it did. But Utah did have some backup plans, and I think they were really solid backup plans. But it just never really progressed beyond interviewing them and really having it go that far because they really did isolate Alex Jensen as the guy from the very beginning.
Tell me what you're hearing, excuse me, you know, the possibility of Andre Miller or any other candidate to kind of fill out the staff. And obviously, it's very early. Tim McMahon joined the show earlier, and he covers the Mavericks for ESPN. And it was good insight for our listeners who missed it. Tim did say that Alex will finish the season with the Dallas Mavericks, but the Mavs have lost 5 straight. The other night, they played like 7 dudes, so they're not going to make the postseason. I don't think they make the play-in. So, the Mavs season will end. But he also said Dallas has really given him kind of carte blanche to do what he has to do to kind of hit the ground running. So just tell us what you're hearing, Josh, as far as the process in place to potentially fill out this staff.
Yeah, early on, it sounded like Andre Miller had wanted there was some interest on his party to kind of return to Utah as well. What that looks like, I'm not entirely sure. I know, depending on who you talk to, there was maybe some kicking of the tires last summer with bringing him on as an assistant in some capacity. I do think Utah's going to try to get him. I do think that there is some interest there. He's obviously coaching at the G League, and their season's going to be wrapping up here very soon. And so I think that the timing's right for all of these things. I think if he wants to come in, I don't think anybody's going to say no. I would be surprised if Alex doesn't want Andre. I mean, the two have such a great connection. Obviously, you bring another storied alum to the program. I mean, that only helps revitalize the program. What he could do to be able to help guard play and teaching fundamentals and just what it takes to be able to be a professional in the NBA for 17, 18 years. I mean, just that experience alone would be able to be beneficial. But outside of that, there's going to have to be some look into, does he keep anybody from the current staff? And it doesn't have to be that case, right? I think there's a couple people that I would identify that if he wanted to, I think could make a lot of sense. One of those being Josh Eilert. Obviously, he's the interim head coach right now. The reason you keep him along is he's a great developer of talent, but he also knows the Big 12 inside and out. He's played in it. He's coached in it for, decade plus. He understands it to a level that just Alex Jensen just won't have, right? He has an idea conceptually of what the Big 12 is, but he's never coached in it, and he's got to be able to have somebody as, a right-hand man or somebody on that bench that understands Big 12 play to a high level. Now, it doesn't have to be Josh Eilert. It could be some other coach, that has experience from the Big 12. Natural fit, especially if you want to keep guys in. And then on top of that, you've got David Evans, obviously a big name in the state of Utah. He's been coaching forever, in the high school ranks and being able to coach in the collegiate ranks now with Utah. There's a lot of knowledge inside there. He's a great developer of talent. He knows what's going on. There's been a lot of, some of the incremental successes that Utah's had with their bigs this year, namely Ezra Asar. You can credit to kind of somebody like a David Evans. So I think if he's looking to keep coaches, those would be the two that I'd look at. And then outside of that, there's rumblings that somebody like a Josh Grant would want it, another alum. I don't know how much that goes, but I think if you can find at least a staff that he feels comfortable with, guys that understand what it takes to coach at the college level, what it takes to coach at the Big 12 level, and all that, and surround yourself with guys that you feel trusted with. I don't think you can go wrong there, but I'm really curious to see how he kind of fills this out in these next few days, especially when he is still with the Mavericks.
So, of course, any candidates, whether it's Alex, whether it's Richard Pitino, insert name here, resurrect Rick Majerus, whatever it is, I'm sure they all had the same line of questioning when Mark reached out, and that is what's the what's the current economic stability of the program? What's the financial infrastructure in place? There's no such thing as a great coach who didn't have great players. I mean, we talk about Rick all the time. We had Britton Johnson on earlier. Those teams, when those teams were at their best, they had 5 pros, and 4 of those pros were NBA guys. The other was Alex, who played overseas. So you've got to find a way to keep up with the Joneses and ultimately pay players to convince them to play for you. So I guess the way I'll ask it, Josh, is what's your understanding of the health of the collective now? Like when Alex or whoever asked Mark, like, are we in a good spot? What do you think the response was?
I think Mark could honestly come in and say, if you take the job, it'll be a much better situation. I think there was so much attention placed on Alex Jensen from the donors that there was a huge influx of cash that would automatically come in. I've heard as high as 3 times as much as what Utah's had this year. Utah was rumored, and I've heard from a lot of people that it's been about $2 million this year for NIL. if you can triple that, I mean, just think of what Utah could do. Now, look, it's still not the highest level, and it's still not something that some of these other teams in the Big 12 are going to do. Even your rival is being able to bring in higher amounts of dollars. So it's still an arms race and something that Utah needs to continue to improve. But I think if you can get, let's say triple the amount of what Utah's got right now, I mean, that gives you something to work with, right? There's still stuff that has to happen where you still have to kind of get some guys on a discount for maybe what they could, or try to pull them over from other areas. But you're definitely in the game now, right? Like, you're probably middle of the Big 12, if not maybe a little bit higher, of teams being able to support NIL. And if you can get that, that's the first step for me. And if I'm Alex Jensen coming into that, that's one of the first things that I'm asking. I'm not leaving my cush job in the NBA. And yeah, you can argue that the Dallas Mavericks is kind of a cluster right now, but you're not going to leave that cush job where things are good for you if you're not going to get the support and fizzle out the same way as Craig Smith, because he just didn't get those dollars, right? And so I think, like you said, whether it was Alex, whether it was Pitino or somebody else, there had to be some sort of monetary benefit to come to Utah. Obviously, it was going to have to be for his own pay. It has to be for his staff and being able to get, support staff to be able to help them. But beyond that, it has to be the NIL. And if you can get the right amount of money, it's much easier to attract the players that are going to be attracted to Alex Jensen for his NBA experience. Much more attractive if Andre Miller is there and saying, look, you can be developed by one of the best guards to play with longevity. Like, you can get those things, and those things can be selling points. But in this day and age, money talks. And if you can't get the money, it's so much harder to be able to do it. Like, a lot of people will look up at Utah State and say, oh, well, they don't have the same amount of money that some of these others do. Sure, they're also in the Mountain West, and it's still a challenge when they get into the NCAA tournament. They can have a phenomenal season like they've had this year, but if you don't have sustainability and you don't have the guys to be able to go toe-to-toe on a week-to-week basis with these Power 4 teams, it's just going to be a real challenge. And so I think Utah's getting there. I'm curious to see what it actually looks like once the roster starts to take shape and everything that way. But by all accounts, it sounds like everything is starting to progress in the right way. And obviously, if he wins more, gets Utah back to the NCAA tournament, I have to imagine there's going to be even more interest for Utah. More fans want to be able to donate. So right now, I'd say it's healthy, but still TBD.
I referenced Tim McMahon reporting on the show today that not only is Alex going to finish off the season with the Mavs, but he's already engaged in the process of understanding what sort of energetic ask this rebuild is going to take from him to coach the Utes. Any idea about, whether or not he's spoken to any of the players? Any idea whether or not he's planned any meetings with boosters? I mean, this is a job that it's going to be a long game. I mean, you cannot really expect this thing to really tick overnight. We'll see if Alex can hit the ground running and grab some good players right away. The transfer portal certainly allows for that. But any idea, Josh, from your reporting, how involved he's been, if at all, so far?
Yeah, first off, I'll start out when he interviewed, there was, my understanding was there was some, top-end donors that were in the mix, right? And so I think they were part of that. They wanted to be able to kind of see that firsthand and be able to have those conversations. Whether he's reached out to the top donors or some of the other donors since then, I haven't heard. Beyond that, though, I do know that he has communicated with the team. I believe that he did travel to Kansas City to be able to meet them. I don't know how long he'll stay there or if he is even still there. But my understanding is that he is still, communicating with them, trying to figure these things out as it goes. So it's still a slow process. I don't think they're necessarily in a hurry. Obviously, you want to kind of get ahead of it before the transfer portal opens up. And a lot of these guys will probably still enter the transfer portal and at least give themselves options. But I don't think that he feels necessarily in a rush, and I don't think that anybody's rushing him either. I think, they want him to be able to do it the right way. As long as he communicates with the donors and he accepts their advice, and, you have to take that, with a grain of salt to some extent. But as long as you have those open communications, fine. Whether that's now or in a week or 2 weeks from now, I think he's getting the support. He's got at least a fairly long runway for the right now where, he can still say, look, I'm coaching with the Mavs. I can't fully get into it, but when we do this summer, I'm going to, wine and dine you type thing and really get this figured out. So, it's a work in progress, but I don't think that he's fully, I don't want to say fully immersed in it yet, just simply because of what he's having to do with the Mavericks.
So, just looking up and down the roster, and ultimately, there's no way of knowing this, but let's just talk about it, kind of kick around some possibilities. And a lot of it's going to be up to Alex. I don't know how much Utah basketball he's watched this year. I mean, my man's got a big time busy job in pro basketball, but I'm sure he's probably been reviewing tape. And I would imagine even talking, I don't know, maybe even to Craig or some of the other coaches. Ezra's a junior, Keanu's a sophomore. You keep going. Mira Little had a great game against Brigham Young's a soph. As we kind of go down the list a little bit, Sharv Jamson's a junior. Waleen's a soph. So of the players that are eligible to come back, just give me your best guess. If you're Alex Jensen, who you talking to try to get back next year, if anyone at all? Maybe you just want to start over. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he can fully, go full 15 roster, start over. I mean, it's possible, but I think he has to find some consistency in trying to get some of these guys here that have been in the system. They at least understand what's going on here, and it'll probably be a very different scheme and different things that way. But if you can get guys that have shown value here and have already gotten the collective fan base, behind them, I think that helps. And to me, two of those guys, especially that you have to try hard for, and depending on the value for them out there in the NIL market, will depend on what Utah sees. But to me, Ezra Sarr and Keanu Dawes have to be kind of your number one or number two, in my opinion. Both of them have shown, flashes of greatness. Ezra especially has come on really strong, especially in the post. He's finally hitting free throws, so you can see that his game can progress. Obviously, if he can, develop more of an outside shot, then he becomes a much more dangerous threat where he can go inside and box you out and work hard there and then beat you with the, a 15-foot jumper type stuff. That's Keanu Dawes, right? Keanu Dawes, if he could put it together more, I think he has probably the higher upside. But we still haven't seen a ton of that. He's still been buried a little bit on the bench. He still hasn't been able to get there. But when he is on the floor, you can see that there's a high ceiling for him if he continues to progress. So to me, those are the two guys that you kind of have to build around. Beyond that, you want to keep Jake Waleen, I think. I think he's shown progress year over year. He's a guy that can guard 1 through 5. He's shown a high motor where he can come in there and mix it up with guys. If he can develop a 3-point shot, that helps you as well. Beyond that, I don't know, right? Like there's other guys that you could go for. Mike Sharp jumps. Obviously, his length can cause some problems, and if you can get some better fundamentals in guard play, he would be a great asset. I don't think Miro Little is going to stick here, just from kind of the sense that I've got in everything. I think he's looking to leave. But if you do get him, I think that's another piece that can continue to grow, and Utah could have a great asset on their hands of somebody that can be great in guard play. They just have to step up and do it on a consistent basis. Outside of that, the only other name that I'd add, and it's a name that nobody saw this year, was Ivy Traore. He got injured at the beginning of the season. Craig Smith raved about him, said he was honestly one of their best bigs that they had. And I think if you can get something out of that, and you can get somebody like an Alex Jensen to coach him up, I'm really fascinated to kind of see who he could be. But he's still kind of a TBD. Is he interested in staying here, or what's going to go there? So there's definitely some options, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alex kind of wants to start from scratch as well. But you got to kind of give yourself some flexibility that you have some guys that are already on the roster.
Before I set you loose, and ultimately this doesn't matter at all because it's yesterday's news, but with the way the Miro little kid looked against BYU and the way that Keanu has looked after Coach Eilert took over, is it fair to be a little bit critical of Craig's rotations? Because obviously, for whatever reason, they weren't as consistently high on those two players specifically. Just give me your thoughts on that, Josh, before I set you loose.
Yeah, I'd say it's yes and no. I mean, I think there was little things throughout the season where both of them just weren't as consistent. They'd get their minutes, but they weren't always kind of fighting fully, right? Like they would take plays off, or they'd do different things that would keep them where they need to be on the bench. And ultimately, Craig sees them in a practice setting. And if they're hanging their heads and they're not, participating in the team the same way as other guys, maybe that's an issue. That's at least kind of what Craig was alluding to at times. But at the same time, I think if you give them a chance and you kind of give them an opportunity to say, hey, look, this is yours for the taking, I think they can run with it. I think these two guys really can do well. I just don't know yet what that is, right? Like I think Little obviously shows that he can have a great upside as a guard. has to have a little bit more command of the ball and control the offense a little bit more. And Dawes just needs to be a little bit more consistent and kind of stay engaged the whole time. So, yeah, I think it's frustrating to see Craig leave them on the bench at times, but at the same time, he had his reasons, and a lot of that has to do with practice and the inconsistency throughout the season. So, yeah, both.
Josh, when am I going to feel better since you just experienced this last week? How many days do I need to give this?
Well, it was probably 3-4 days. I felt better, and then I got it again. So hopefully you don't get that.
Oh, dear. All right.
Yeah, so good luck with that, man.
Josh, thanks for the time, brother. We'll chat soon.
You have a good one.
Josh Furlong, brought to you today by our good friends at Burt Brothers. Here we go. We're going to get this done. I'm a pro, Porter. Don't look at me like that. I am a professional, all right? Burt Brothers, with over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations, Burt Brothers ASE certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. Industry-leading warranties and low-price tire guarantees. It's a one-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance. From tires and alignments to fluids and brakes, offering a full range of automotive services tailored to meet your needs. Now offering value tire options such as Americas and Summit tires, starting at just $69 with warranties that go up to 70,000 miles. As one of the few AAA certified shops in Utah, Burt Brothers upholds the highest standards in automotive service. Stop by Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made them a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers, doing it better since day one. More information can be found at burtbrothers.com. See? Oh, ye of little faith.
You can do hard things.
I can do hard things.
We already discussed this. We know.
This is masonry in here, Porter.
It's like
getting through.
It's like going back to the 1800s, like a blacksmith, just sharpen iron.
Yep. That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
That's exactly what I am on a Monday with literally no voice. But we're going to get there. Going to switch gears coming up on the other side. RSL. Oh, my goodness. Things are not awesome. The vibes are low, as the kids would say. I'm a results over vibes guy, but the problem is the results are poor as well for our friends out in Sandy. RSL with another loss over the weekend, back in action coming up. So Kurt Schmidt, who is the chief roster constructor, he's in charge of this entire situation. He'll stop by. Get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. It has been an unexpectedly busy day in the world of professional football. Sam Darnold's headed to the Seahawks. Some rough news for the New York Yankees we'll get to coming up in a bit. That's in the 5 o'clock hour of the show. On a Monday afternoon, keep it right here on The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700, 92 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Some breaking news on a Monday afternoon. Zach Wilson has agreed to a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Miami Dolphins. So there you go. It's been a fast and furious news day in the world of pro football. We'll get back to it in the 5 o'clock hour. But our next guest joins us on a consistent basis. He is the chief roster constructor over at RSL. It's always great to have Kurt Schmidt. Even though I'm laboring a little bit, playing injured with the voice, but Kurt Schmidt stops by on a Monday afternoon. Kurt, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry about your laboring.
Well, hanging in. You know, we all have challenges, Kurt. Problems are inevitable, but they're also solvable. Yes?
Yes, agreed.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you agree because right now there are some problems with the roster. See what I did there? A little bit of transition. Look, man, you know what I'm going to ask you? Everybody's wondering if there's help on the way up top at number 9, and you're the guy that's making the phone calls, talking ownership. I know these things are complex and nuanced and oftentimes take time, but when we last spoke, you kind of implied that you felt like you were getting close. I would imagine that you're still kind of there. But where are we at with this fan base who is anxious to see if we're going to get some help with some playmakers either up top or on the wings surrounding the forwards?
Yeah, obviously, you know, and we talked about this before, but certainly there's help on the way. Like, you know, we see it as well as everyone else can, and we know we need to strengthen things a bit, and we're close with 2 or 3 options that we think will come in and improve the group and hopefully tie it all together.
So 2 or 3 options, and I would imagine those options are all on the attacking portion of the pitch, as they say. Is that fair to say?
Say that again.
The 2 or 3 options. The 2 or 3 options are either strikers. They're attacking players, right?
Yeah, attackers, and not that we're going to sign 3 guys, but you know, obviously when we're working on deals, we need to have a couple avenues to work on, and you know, not everything goes according to plan all the time. So it's just about having options and being able to pivot if necessary from 1 to 2.
Is there an amount of players that you would like to sign prior to that April window closing?
I think we need 1 guy for sure, and if we can add a second, we will look into that. But certainly our situation with international spots is a little tight at the moment, so it would have to be a domestic player, and you know, I think we can free up a spot and start to integrate, you know, a young player from the draft that we think has done well in training as well. And Jesus Brea, we might do something like that also.
So looks like MLS announced Friday the cash from player sales kind of spilling in, and RSL, if I'm reading this correctly, has the 5th most GAM in all of MLS. Kurt, is that correct?
I believe you are spot on. Probably hasn't changed since then, but it'll probably change soon. But yes.
So for our listeners, and this probably includes most of them, what is GAM, and why is it good that you have a lot of it?
Yeah, I mean, GAM is essentially roster flexibility, but it kind of comes into play in a couple different ways. And one is it's the internal currency within MLS. So if we want to trade for a player, we have to, you know, before the cash trade rule, which just came into effect, there was just league assets. And so league assets are like draft picks, players, but then GAM was a asset that you could put into trades and add on top of trades. And I think when you're using it in that way, it has a little bit of an inflated value over and above what its sort of face value is relative to real money. But then you also use it to extend your roster. So, you know, when we spend on salaries an amount that exceeds what the cap is, we can use GAM to buy players down so that we fit back into the cap. So when we sign new players, right now we're at the cap, we're cap neutral. When we sign a new player, basically dollar for dollar, his cap charge comes from GAM.
There you go. The education session on GAM today on the show on a Monday afternoon, courtesy of the guy that could break it down, Kurt Schmidt, joining the program today. All right. Upon rewatch, do you feel any better about San Diego rolling in here and winning 3-1 after you went back and watched the game?
No, I don't feel better about it. You know, I think any result like that is going to be frustrating, you know, for me, for the staff, for the players. You know, I think there was that's a game where we feel like we can get a result, where we can win that game, and so coming out with not even a draw but a loss is certainly upsetting, especially when it comes as late as it does, or it did in that game. So from that standpoint, no, I don't feel better looking back on it. I'm going to be frustrated until we win the next game, and that's how I've always been, and it won't change. But from the standpoint of how we play, I do think that there's certainly positives to pick out of how we're playing, how we're creating chances, the chances we are creating, that you can pick out of sort of the muck and negativity of a negative result.
And ultimately, that's why I asked the question, because, while in the moment it is frustrating for obviously all of you with the club and fans that care about the club to have an expansion franchise roll in and essentially dictate play. I mean, it felt like at the start, you guys were a little bit fortunate not to be down, 3-0 after 15 or 20 minutes. You do hear a lot from Pablo after some of these losses, like, I like the flow. I like the way we're playing. We just can't finish. We're just not finishing. So that's why I asked the question, like, is it as simple, Kurt, as the guys up top not putting the ball in the back of the net, or are there more problems with the way you're playing right now?
Well, at the moment, the two guys up top are actually the two that have scored so far. So I don't know if it's quite that simple. Ari and Forster both picking up goals. I think maybe they both could have picked up a few more goals, but I don't want to take anything away from the way they've played and the goals they have scored. I think it's the other attacking group that I think we can get a little more out of in moments. Obviously we had especially 2, maybe 3 really good chances in on the goalkeeper that I think any other day of the week we do a lot better with each one, and to miss both is certainly unexpected. Probably doesn't do it justice, but just out of the ordinary enough that I know that I feel confident that if we continue to create chances of that caliber, the result is not going to continue to be the same. These are all very, very good players, and they can play and finish at a high level. That said, they're human, and humans aren't perfect. But I know that if we continue to create chances like that, for whether it's Diego or Dom or Forster or Ari or Diego Luna or Diogo, like they're going to score those goals.
And to your point, and I didn't mean to highlight only the 9s, because, there were a lot of, Diogo had some chances. Diego had chances. Dom had some chances, so I guess what I'll say is, when if you just you don't take away the 9s, but if you include all of the pieces of your attack, your central midfielders, they're in the attacking portion, your wingers and your forwards, are you satisfied at least with the chances that are being created?
I like the chances that we're creating. I'm not satisfied in that we're not going to stop, but we like the chances that we're creating. I think if we continue to create chances of the caliber, we'll score goals, we'll win games. So the key is how we're playing and how we're getting into the final third, and also even generating shots in the final third. So I think that we can improve those aspects of our game, but I think we are also doing a good enough job right now to get a better result this past weekend, for instance. But it's something that we're always working on, we're always improving on. But it's enough encouraging signs. It's you don't come into work and feel like, where do we start? I think we have some clear ideas about how to improve the group. But again, me sitting in my seat, I have confidence that if the coaches and the players continue to do what they're doing, we're going to score those goals.
What is your response, Kurt, to fans that are frustrated that the money the club was able to garner as a result of a number of transactions, including selling Andres, which was proof of concept, and we all understand why you did it. But what's your reaction to fans that were hoping that the bulk of the money that was made on those transactions would be reinvested into the roster by now?
So it's an interesting question. When you sell a $10 or $11 million player, it doesn't mean that you take all of that and you buy a $10 or $11 million player. That's not always the way things work, especially not, I guess, with clubs like ours. It's easy to forget, since we did sell him for $11 million or so, that Andreas wasn't an $11 million player when we signed him. We signed him for $3 million, right? And so I think we're always going to be a club that's looking for those guys.
Dominic Marzouk is a good player. We didn't spend $10 million on him. We spent just under $2. He's a guy that is going to come in and, we hope to develop him and he'll show us, what he has, and we'll be able to potentially do the same thing with him. And, I do think there's some players where we can buy at that level, show their quality and their value and make them worth more money. But I think when we look at, the sales that we've made, we're a club that is not going to just go 10 million every single year. It's not something that is in how we can operate within this ecosystem. But I do think we can operate in a way where we pick up players that are either undervalued or overlooked or developing in certain ways at the right price points, and they can add a lot of value to our club for a number of years and then make that right transaction at the right time.
Tell me, Kurt, from your vantage point, what you've seen with Diogo, who is the lone DP on your roster, who at times, you definitely see the quality, you definitely see moments and spurts here or there. But if we're honest, I'm not sure that the DP production has necessarily been there so far. So what have you seen up to this point about his growth, and what are you hoping to see moving forward?
I think he's a good player that shows his quality, as you said, in a lot of good moments. The ball he played, the Forster for his goal the other week was a very, very good pass. His technical quality is very high, and usually his finishing quality is very high. His production, it's fair to criticize at this moment, but it's another one where I have confidence in the quality and quantity of chances he's creating, that the goals will come. And so, it's easy to forget he hasn't played quite that many games with us yet, when you look at the grand scheme of things. But I think that he will come good in terms of, getting in the right spots. And if he keeps getting in the right spots, he'll get the assists, he'll get the goals. Sometimes the assists are a little bit elusive because you can put a guy in a good spot. You can pass the ball, but you can't always, can't pass the ball and take the shot and score the goal. You have to pass it to a teammate, and then the teammate has to do his thing. So assists are a little bit mercurial that way. And I think when he gets in those chances like he did the other night, that was, in my opinion, uncharacteristic. And I think he's going to finish those chances.
To your earlier point, Forrester and Piola found the back of the net. And for our listeners that are just tuning in, Kurt Schmidt from RSL has indicated that he believes help is on the way. I know a lot of fans hoping to see a big-time number 9 sign, or at least a number 9 that can provide a little more quality up top. But we should give them credit for at least finding the back of the net. How do you envision their role once these reinforcements are brought in? Have they shown enough that, okay, maybe neither of them are, I'll just use a Chicho, for about 3 months last year type prime striker, but they do have a place on the team. Like Pablo can utilize them in spurts. Have you seen enough from the 2 9s that we've seen for the most part to indicate that they do have a place on the team?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why we brought them both in. Both are in terms of per 90 goals, per 90 rates are on incredible rates, and scoring as early as they did in the season is great for their confidence and their sense of belonging and their development. They're both young players. They're both inexperienced, so they do need to gain, experience. They need to continue to play and get those minutes, which are going to help them develop. But again, they're young players that aren't the finished product. So there's plenty of confidence in them playing a role going forward, irrespective of additions. But I'm happy to see them excelling at this stage.
I always remind people, whether it's a good start or a bad start, that this season, more so than maybe any other, is such a slog. It's such a marathon that there will be ebbs, there will be flows, there will be highs, there will be lows. I didn't mean that to rhyme. Maybe I should write children's books when I'm not on air. I don't know. But at what point in the calendar do you start to feel a little bit of urgency for a year like this when the start hasn't been very bright? At what point do you kind of get that pressure mounting on you just a little bit, Kurt?
Honestly, this isn't the methodical or well thought out answer. Now, I feel that pressure now. I feel that pressure all the time. I want us to be good. I want us to get better. I want to add quality to the team. I want them to play at a high level, all the time.
So I guess, if you're asking what, the pressure that I put on myself, that we put on ourselves here, it's there now. We want to pick up those wins now. Certainly it's how you finish and not as much how you start in this league, and the summer can be a slog, but points in March count the same as points in September and October. And we want to pick up points, and we want to improve, not just match, but improve upon what we were able to do last year.
I don't want this just to have the negative context or kind of tone, so I will ask you, from your vantage point, as you've watched the games in real time and then have gone back to kind of look at tape, where are the bright spots so far, Kurt, that you're seeing?
In terms of individuals or just play?
Either. Whatever's. I don't want this to be all negative. So is there a couple players? Is there a way you're playing? Are there things that are, and maybe there's nothing. I mean, if we're honest, it has not been a very good start, man. I just wanted to give some space for maybe things that are actually bright that maybe we're not seeing.
Yeah, look, I think the play of our pivots, Emeka and Ojeda have a great partnership, and really like to see Emeka building on a strong 2024, and Ojeda has been really good this year. The level of depth and competition, especially along the back line, is really high, and some of the new guys that have come in there and pushed the starters for minutes and for time, and I think that's just only going to serve us well along the way. I think there have been a lot of really good moments from our attacking group. I think Dom has been really well in moments, Diogo, and the two young strikers. So there are a lot of bright spots. Now, not everyone is always a bright spot all the time, but I think there's been a lot to be encouraged by, like I said, with the young strikers. I think with, Dom coming out of Champions Cup, I think he's, put on some really good performances. So there's a lot there to be happy with and proud of going forward. But now it's time to put the results away.
The options for the 9, or a couple of options you're looking at, are these players that currently are in MLS, or are they potentially international transfers to come in?
Both.
All right.
Yeah. Both.
All right. Okay.
Not a lot of context around that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Before I set you loose, tell me about Houston. That's the opponent coming up. And I mean, luckily you're at Houston in March and not July, because that's impossible. But tell me about this team you're playing coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's always a fun road trip. But like you said, the weather's a little bit cooler now than it is in the summer. They're a team that's lost a few key pieces from last year and is trying to figure out what they look like in 2025 as well. And, I think that's what makes them a little bit tough to maybe game plan for, or to really expect a lot out of, or know what to expect out of. They lost their left center back, who's a really, really good young player that they picked up in Brazil. They sold him back to Brazil. They lost Hector Herrera, who was like a real metronome and leader for them in the middle. And so they're trying to fill those gaps now with some guys who haven't maybe played as many minutes in the past couple of years. So it's about, making sure that we basically don't let them figure it out against us, right? Like, they're still trying to do some of the same things they did last year, and they're not quite doing it as high a level as they did last year. And so it's just about us imposing our game on them.
All right, Kurt. Well, I appreciate the time, man. Been a rough start, but like I said, it's a long, long season. So best of luck as you're trying to get these things across the line. I'm innately aware that it's not as easy as a lot of people think, and appreciate your time, man. Have a good week, and good luck against Houston, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
All right, Kurt Schmidt, RSL got smoked over the weekend, and it's unacceptable. San Diego is an expansion franchise. They rolled into America First Field, and they could have been up 3-0 after like 15 minutes. RSL did get a really nice goal by Piol to tie it up at 1. San Diego got 2 in the second half. Came on the heels against a really good win in their MLS opener, home opener against Seattle, I should say. Their MLS opener, they got smoked by San Jose. So I would imagine if you're an RSL fan, you're not too pleased with the state of, well, quite frankly, everything. CONCACAF Champions Cup, first time you qualify in like a decade. You get smoked by a club that isn't very good. The reinforcements that have been rumored have not been able to get across the line. As I referenced, San Jose smokes you. Then you get Seattle at home, and an expansion franchise rolls in and dictates everything. Houston has not won yet, so RSL hopefully can get one on the road. They're back home against Dallas on the 22nd. So appreciate Kurt's time. All right, we'll catch a quick break. A bevy of NFL news has come down today. The free agent window is not official until Wednesday. Some local players on the move. We'll let you know what that looks like coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the program. The latest on the Alex Jensen hire as well. We got about 1 hour left in the show on a lovely Monday, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time on a Monday afternoon. Been a beautiful day, about 58 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Going to get cold this week, going to get chilly this week, but it is March. So if you've never lived in Utah, if you're new to our market, just know that it's pretty common to have a 62-degree Monday and a 39-degree Friday with snow in the forecast. Not out of the cold weather woods yet, but as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. My name is Spence Checketts. It's good to be back. After a couple of days off last week, took some time off, and now back in the saddle on a Monday. Voice is not optimal. If you're dealing with the sinus chest congestion thing, I feel you. Hopefully your job is not to babble on air for 4 hours every single day. All right, we've had a fun, lively show. Tim McMahon stopped by early in the program, and if you missed it, some pretty interesting reporting from Tim. Covers the Dallas Mavericks, among other teams, including the Utah Jazz for ESPN. And Tim referenced that Alex Jensen is going to finish out the season with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the good news is if you're a Ute fan wanting your head basketball coach to get on the ground as soon as possible, the Dallas Mavericks, after trading away a generational superstar at the age of 25, they lost the player that they traded him for. After a quarter and a half, Anthony Davis goes down, and they've shut Anthony Davis down for the year. Kyrie Irving, unfortunately, tore his Achilles. They're also without Lively and Gafford. They're without basically 4 of their 5 best players. They've lost 5 straight games. They've lost 7 of their last 8. And it does not look like they're trying to be serious about winning, trying to get into the lottery. Maybe they get a little luck. So Dallas, as far as when their season will end, most likely it's at the end of the regular season, which is April the 13th. So just over a month away from right now, Alex Jensen will be free to focus all of his time on rebuilding Utah basketball. But Tim also referenced, in addition to finishing the season with the Dallas Mavericks, he has already started to kind of get a feel for what this project is going to entail and is going to do some things already with the University of Utah and the basketball program. Tim referenced that Alex is going to be at the Big 12 tournament where the Utes will play UCF, the team they played on the road in Orlando. It was Craig's final game as Utah lost that game. Winnable game for the Utes, and then their second-round opponent is Kansas, and Utah beat Kansas. Kansas has played a little bit better since they played the Utes. So some interesting reporting early on from Tim McMahon on the program today. Some insight that Alex Jensen really already getting to work. And, of course, there's a lot of work to do. It has been a massively busy day in the world of pro football. Sam Darnold is headed to the Seahawks on a $100 million deal. Sources are indicating the Rams are going to release Cooper Kupp if they can't make a trade. They have acquired, of course, Devontae Adams from the Jets. Speaking of the Jets, they're doing Jets things, which means it's dumb. Justin Fields, $40 million deal to the New York Jets for 2 years. Zach Wilson is holding on to his NFL lifeline. He joins Tyler Huntley and Tua Tagovailoa down in Miami on a 1-year, $6 million deal. The Eagles have traded Kenny Pickett to the Browns. Commanders have made a trade for Laramie Tunsil, and that's just a portion of what's gone on. J.C. Horn gets a 4-year extension with the Panthers. A lot of defensive players getting paid today. So kind of an unexpected, busy day in the world of pro football. Free agency doesn't really get going officially until Wednesday. Dan Moore goes to the Titans on a 4-year, $82 million deal, a very good offensive lineman. Aaron Banks, who's another good offensive lineman, goes to the Packers. Josh Sweat, defensive end, goes to the Cardinals. Chris Godwin has been re-signed by the Bucs for a 3-year deal, and that's just a tip of the iceberg. Jimmy Garoppolo is going back to the Rams on a 1-year deal. A bevy of deals being announced today in the world of pro football, but they will not become official until Wednesday afternoon. Have you changed? What's your take on the Zach Wilson continuing to just hold on to that NFL lifeline, landing in Miami after a season in Denver where he really didn't even get off the bench?
Yeah, it's one where, my thoughts on Zach as an NFL quarterback have been kind of well documented. I think he's a really talented thrower of the football, a guy physically has a lot of the traits that you need to be an NFL quarterback, but there has always been and this is what I said during the draft, Spence, this is what I said to Zach's face when I was working with him and Skyler before he was drafted, is that there was still a delay on some of the in-play and pre-snap recognition stuff that just, there's no room for error in the NFL. There's zero room for error in the NFL, whereas at the college level, the high school level, you can kind of, I don't know how to say it, Steve Young your way out of stuff, right? Just to get out of the pocket, escape, make things happen. That's something you could do at BYU when you were facing Coastal Carolina and the like. That's something you could do at Corner Canyon. You can't do it with the Denver Broncos. You can't do it with the Miami Dolphins. And I do think that is something that Zach has been working really, really hard on. But you really just don't see it until you get him out on the field, not only out on the field, but out on the field in game action at the NFL level. Because from what you hear at practice, at camp, he's making those progressions. He's making strides in those areas. But there's something about, whether it's the bright lights, whether it's something else, there's something about when you get into those 60 minutes of an NFL game that while Zach has shown flashes, he hasn't quite caught up to the speed of the NFL game. That's still the step he has to take. And now, coincidentally, a few years after we talked a lot about him and Zach and Tyler Huntley and who's going to make it in the NFL, who's going to be a starter, who's going to be a backup. I told you back then that I thought they were both, kind of second string, borderline guys. Well, here we are 4 years later. They're both backing up Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, and they're kind of both borderline backup guys.
Yeah, so we'll see if Zach can stick in Miami after his experience in Denver, backing up, I guess third string for Bo Nix. Utah Jazz are in action tonight. They continue their road trip. They're going to take on the Boston Celtics. I would imagine the Celtics are resting players. Jazz continue kind of their march toward the bottom of the standings in pro basketball. I know it's kind of an odd juxtaposition to find yourself in as an NBA fan, to cheer for your team to lose. I know it doesn't feel great. At some point, maybe the NBA comes up with a solution. Jazz were in Philly. And Philly actually, Oklahoma City owns so many future draft picks. Philly actually needed to lose that game. They have a top 6 protected pick that if it falls out of the top 6, it goes to Oklahoma City. And right now, if the lottery was to be held today, Philly would be 7. So that pick would go to OKC. Obviously, it's a wild scenario as Oklahoma City is historically good when it comes to their net. It's going to be one of the best, if not the best net in the history of pro basketball with the way they played. So the Jazz marched into Philly with mostly young players and bit pieces. Your starting lineup was KJ Martin, Kyle Filipowski, Bryce Sensabaugh, Johnny Juzang, and Isaiah Collier. And Philly started Yerson Yabusele, Justin Edwards, Andre Drummond, Kelly Oubre, and Quentin Grimes. NBA basketball. Former Jazzman Jared Butler had a decent game. Lonnie Walker lit it up with 25. So Jazz taking on the Celtics tonight. Remember, the bottom 3 teams in pro basketball all have a 14% chance to grab that number 1 overall pick. And if the Jazz are able to finally get Lady Luck to shine upon them, then next year we can start talking about, all right, maybe we got something. I still believe that next year is going to feel a lot like this year. I know Jazz fans don't want to hear that, but that's just the way this sport is now formulated. About 1/3 of fan bases in the NBA every year is kind of forced to cheer for their team to lose. And certainly there are some teams that had just a laundry list of bad luck, namely the New Orleans Pelicans. And San Antonio, after Wembanyama's gone down, they're now aggressively trying to lose. If we're sitting here on lottery night and San Antonio grabs the number 1 overall pick and they draft Cooper Flag to go next to Victor Wembanyama, I don't know what the reaction is going to be. But they're now in the lottery mix. Washington, Charlotte, Toronto, Brooklyn, Portland, San Antonio, the Pelicans, and the Jazz. I mean, 8 or 9 teams every year in this league have fan bases that have to outwardly choose or cheer for their team to lose. It's an odd way. It's a new thing. Not entirely new, but on this level, it is new. So, Jazz in action tonight. They're going to take on the Boston Celtics. Big 12 tournament right around the corner. Utah Utes are going to open up with UCF. That's a team that they lost to in Orlando. That was the final game that Craig coached for the Utes. And Brigham Young has earned their way to a quarterfinal first game matchup. They have a double bye, and we'll see who their opponent will be. It's probably going to be Iowa State. And BYU was able to beat Iowa State in Ames just a couple of weeks ago. Brigham Young, one of the hottest teams in college basketball. They've won 8 straight games. All right, biggest news that kind of came down when I was out of town after reporting on the possibility of Alex Jensen to Utah as their head men's basketball coach. It became official while I was away. Britton Johnson is one of his best friends. He's going to join us coming up on the other side before we launch into today's best at 6 o'clock. We got about 45 minutes left in the show. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, so do I get a Medal of Honor? Do I get the Presidential Medal of Freedom for completing the show today?
One of those, huh?
Hey, with the way that stuff is being thrown around these days, don't ever say you don't think it would be possible.
Yeah, I guess you're not wrong. You get a medal, you get a cookie.
All right. Well,
I think you deserve something, though.
I'm not going to lie.
You sound better than you did it, too.
Yeah, after opening tip, I'm like, no, this isn't happening. I broke a sweat. I could barely speak, and I thought I was going to have to tap out. It's the odd thing about this job, right? Like, you have no choice. You got to figure it out. What would happen if at 2:08 I'm like, hey, dude, just so you know, I'm done?
Yeah, I guess I probably would have figured something out. I would have interviewed a few of these guys and gone from there, played back a Kyle or some stuff from earlier today.
Right.
That's probably what really happens if we're working if we're audibling last minute. But it's the way we roll.
Well, I'm going home to watch some NBA, and then I'm going to bed.
Honey, lemon, ginger,
peppermint. I got a grip of teas at the house, man. Grip of teas.
Okay, you're good then.
So we'll figure it out.
I know Bill's got a concoction that is apparently like life-changing when it comes to this stuff. I have heard him like completely change his voice within hours, so maybe hit him up.
It's called vodka sodas.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. But ultimately, I do have my own little concoction here, and I think it worked eventually. I thought I would warm up and kind of settle in, but it was the tease that actually did help out. Nobody gives a rip, but when you're a sports talk radio host and your voice is compromised, 4 hours is tough. A lot of good NBA tonight. Of course, conference tournaments going on. Love March Madness. Really hoping to feel better so I can kind of dig into some of this stuff. Big 12 tournament gets rolling tomorrow. Utah will take on UCF. BYU is idle until Thursday. Looks like BYU most likely will play Iowa State. If Utah can get by UCF, they're going to take on Kansas. They already beat. And a bevy of movement in pro football today. Sam Darnold is a Seahawk. Great signing for them. Garrett Cole will have Tommy John surgery. The Yankee ace is going to miss the entire year. And the Jets signed Justin Fields. So it's great to be a Jets fan and a Yankee fan like I am. Goodness gracious. All right, final segment of the program is brought to you by Prize Picks, which is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is very easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. The best place to win cash while watching sports. The second half of the basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sport. So go get their free money. Give it a try. See if you like it. Download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700, and you get $50 when you just play your first $5 bet. Don't even have to win the bet to get the $50. It's guaranteed. So download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700. You get $50 when you play your first $5 bet. All right, Porter, time for rest, time for hydration, time for tea, time for NBA, time for Utah Hockey Club. But tomorrow, what comes our way on a Tuesday show?
On the program tomorrow, we're going to get the official reaction from the folks up on the Hill on the hiring of Alex Jensen. And, of course, a look ahead to the Big 12 tournament. Bill Riley stops by the voice of the Utes on a game day for Utah basketball. And then we're going to double up on the NBA Daily Assist on a Tuesday. You mentioned it, a bunch of games going on tonight. Tom Haberstroh, Zach Harper for your NBA double assist ×2 on a Tuesday. And then Dave Fox is going to finish off the show strong, I think. Is that what we call it?
Don't make promises that we can't deliver upon.
He'll finish off the show.
He will. That's a literally true thing.
With the clock. We'll end it at around 5, 6 o'clock with Dave Fox.
I will be on TV tomorrow night with Dave, I think, unless I wake up tomorrow and I've broken into a fever or something. So pray for me. Good wishes, good thoughts. We'll see what tomorrow brings, but we'll say goodnight for a Monday. Special thank you today. Tim McMahon, Britton Johnson, Josh Furlong, and Kurt Schmidt. For any of the sound you may have missed, go to the website, ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app. The ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then if you missed anything from the show, check out our podcast page. We call it The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. So subscribe, rate, review. Say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. It helps us out. If this is your first time listening, I don't usually sound like this. So give me another chance tomorrow. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy your Monday evening. We'll talk to you on a Tuesday Drive. As always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah.